Welcome to Audio Novel. If you enjoy my work, don't forget to like and subscribe. To access advanced chapters or support the author, visit their official page, link is in the description. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's dive into the story. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. 001 The Mechanical Hunter that settled in Marvel location, parallel time and space of the Earth, XX Road, Queens, New York, USA, Marvel Universe, No. XX. Time, January 2008, Marvel Universe. Jiujiu was very panicked at this moment. He was playing games at home the moment before, and XT moment he appeared inexplicably in this strange environment. Looking at the strange environment in front of him, Jiujiu quietly waited for something strange to happen to him. Yes, because he knew clearly that his current body was no longer his ES body. Sure enough, XT moment, accompanied by the sudden heart-wrenching pain in the brain, Jiujiu knew that the memory fusion that would happen to 70% of the time travelers had begun. Gritting his teeth and trying his best to endure it, the severe pain suddenly disappeared for a long time, just as it came without any signs, and went without any drag. XT moment, Jiujiu learned about his current identity and the world he was in through the memory of his ES life. The name of the ES incarnation was also Jiujiu. He was a 16-year-old high school student of American Chinese descent, living in Queens, New York, and his parents died in a car accident. He left behind a lot of property, at least Jiujiu, who had traveled through time, would not worry about his future life. This body was 175 centimeters tall, weighed 75 kilograms, and had a very healthy and standard figure. Standing up, Jiujiu continued to look through the memories of his ES incarnation about this world while walking into the bathroom, first to see what he looked like now, and second to wash his face and calm down. Yes, he needed to calm down, because he knew from his memory. This world was not the original Earth, to be precise, it was the Marvel multiverse world that he was so familiar with that it was killing people. The only thing that could make Jiujiu feel a little relieved was that it was still 2008, and there were still a few years before the Marvel Universe really became chaotic, so at least Jiujiu could be saved. If possible, Jiujiu really didn't want to travel through time to this world. He really didn't want to face the endless villains in this world, the powerful aliens that ordinary people were no match for, and even the Thanos who defeated the Avengers. Thinking of his ability to wipe out half of the population of the universe with a snap of his fingers, Jiujiu couldn't calm down for a long time. Looking at his familiar face in the mirror, because his current appearance is exactly the same as when he was 16 years old in the time and space of the Earth. XT moment, Jiujiu started to worry, muttering to himself. What should I do? The Marvel Universe is a world where the poor rely on mutations and the rich rely on technology. But what about me? I can't find a way to mutate, and I don't have money to rely on money. I can't be bitten by a mutant spider like Spider-Man Peter Parker, right? Not to mention whether I can survive the gene fusion after being bitten. The key is that I can't mutate without Peter's genes. Give up. As for being exposed to gamma rays like the Hulk, just thinking about the 1 in a billion chance of survival is chilling, so forget it. As for using Hulk's blood to mutate indirectly, forget it. I don't want to become an ugly monster like the Abomination. Give up. As for taking the technological route, like Iron Man Tony, to invent and manufacture iron suits, forget it. First of all, he doesn't have the giant Stark Industries money and technology to support him, and the key is that he doesn't have Tony's super high IQ and mechanical talent. Just muttering to this, Jiujiu's long-awaited system voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Congratulations host, say the key words, IQ, mechanical talent, trigger the special career system, the system starts to start. Starting. 1%. 2%. 100%. Startup completed. Jiujiu felt an inexplicable current surging through his body that made him feel extremely comfortable. It only lasted for 10 seconds, and this feeling disappeared. Then, the system's voice sounded again. Congratulations to the host for the successful digital transformation of the body. The special occupation module, Mechanical Hunter, has been loaded successfully. The host can view the occupation information on the information panel. The exclusive mechanical space of 100 square meters has been expanded in the host's mind. The host can store necessary materials in the space and carry out mechanical manufacturing and modification. After listening to the system's narration, Jiujiu couldn't wait to open his own information panel in his mind to check. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, mechanical hunter, has excellent melee ability, uses various weapons to attack enemies, and operates various mechanical creations to fight. Level 0, 0/10 0. Attributes. Strength, 1, attack strength 100 kilograms. Physical strength, 1, physical recovery, including external injuries, internal injuries, and high-intensity continuous combat time equals 1 hour. Intelligence, 2, learning, understanding, design, mechanical invention and manufacturing, modification ability. Spirit, 2, manufacturing, modifying machinery, operating mechanical crops consumes energy equals 1/100 energy. Agility, 2, attack, reaction, running speed. Speed, 10 meters per second. Energy, 200, 2 points/minute recovery speed. Professional talent skills. 1. Primary combat master. As a hunter, you can skillfully perform various close combat skills, use swords, bows, crossbows, thermal weapons, and other weapons to fight. 2. Primary mechanical master, consumes a certain amount of energy, can manufacture and transform lower-level mechanical creations in the mechanical space, and has a high affinity for mechanical creations. Pet, none. Mount, none. Special space, mechanical manufacturing space is 100 square meters, the space cannot store living things, including the host. Note, time and space shuttle function has 1 remaining. Note, the only main-line super god-level task kill Thanos and his lackeys. The task is successful and rewards 6 cosmic gems. After reading his panel information, Jiujiu has a basic understanding of the 5 attributes, but he doesn't know much about the energy of spiritual transformation. After all, according to the law of conservation of energy, he doesn't believe that the energy he has is only this effect. Everything needs to be experimented one by one in the future, waiting for his own discovery to know. As for the only super god task, Jiujiu chose to ignore its existence directly. Unfortunately, although Jiujiu got the system, he didn't get any novice gift packs, which means that Jiujiu didn't even have a weapon. However, Jiujiu doesn't need to worry about this. After all, in this world, whether it is a gun, a crossbow, a dagger, or an alloy sword, you can buy it. Just buy it before the battle. After closing the panel information, Jiujiu's consciousness entered the mechanical space to check. When his eyes darkened, Jiujiu's consciousness entered a space. After a closer look, there was a space of 100 square meters in front of him. Except for a boiler and an operating table, there was nothing else. Jiujiu put his consciousness into contact with the boiler and the operating table. Detailed information about these 2 things was obtained. 002 Modified Weapon Mechanical Crossbow. Energy Conversion Furnace. The host's own energy can be converted into any energy in the boiler to provide energy for mechanical creations. It can also consume the host's energy to smelt any metal. Operation Table. According to the host's consciousness, the operation table can automatically manufacture mechanical creations or perform mechanical modifications. After leaving the space, Jiujiu stood up and walked to the utility room of the house. If he remembered correctly, there was a crossbow that his predecessor had bought, as well as a pistol and a rifle left by his father. These weapons are what Jiujiu needs. After a simple transformation, when he travels to other worlds, he will have weapons for self-protection. After rummaging through the utility room, he finally found the crossbow. It was not bad when he looked closely. Although there was a lot of dust, it looked like it had good lethality. Taiwan Novel Network. This is a crossbow that can fire crossbow arrows and steel balls. The range is not bad, and it can accurately shoot at least 30 meters away. Unfortunately, this kind of crossbow can only fire single shots, and it cannot fire continuously like a pistol or rifle, which makes it much less practical. Just as Jiujiu was sighing, the system voice suddenly sounded again. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the crossbow weapon. The host is rewarded with a mechanical crossbow modification blueprint. The reward has been distributed to the mechanical space. After receiving the system's prompt, Jiujiu was very surprised. I didn't expect that this system was still a bit humane. Although he didn't give himself a novice gift package, he gave himself a modification blueprint, which solved his urgent problem of not having a suitable weapon. Thinking of this, Jiujiu took out the blueprint from the space and looked at it carefully. At first glance, Jiujiu couldn't help but smack his lips. This modification blueprint is really awesome black technology. Only through simple modification processing can you get a mechanical crossbow with all-round improvement. Not to mention that the range and power of the crossbow have been greatly improved, just the function of being able to fire continuously is enough to make Jiujiu laugh like a pig. Through the special transformation of the space, a 10-ball crossbow magazine or a 30-ball magazine can be installed under the crossbow, and through the complex black technology power design, the function of continuous firing can be achieved. With the addition of a scope, the crossbow can accurately shoot targets 150 meters away. The steel balls can also reach the power and speed of a pistol within 50 meters. The most special thing is that after the modification, its weight is not as heavy as the original crossbow, which is very suitable for long-term combat. Excitedly put away the crossbow, immediately picked up the phone to place an order, and bought the metal and other materials needed to transform the mechanical crossbow. It must be said that the express delivery business in this world is very developed. Jiujiu only placed the order for an hour, and all the goods were delivered to the door. Signed for acceptance, asked someone to move all the things into the warehouse, and after the people left, Jiujiu couldn't wait to put all the things into the space. According to the understanding from the system, the mine directed the metal to enter the smelting furnace, and the molten metal solution entered the workbench to cast the parts needed for the modified mechanical crossbow. This process consumed Jiujiu's 50 energy points, and then assembled it through the workbench. Soon, a mechanical crossbow with a full sense of technology and an incredibly beautiful appearance appeared on the space workbench. Can't wait to take the mechanical crossbow out of the space, Jiujiu happily took it in his hand and looked through it carefully. Not bad, with a pure black appearance, it weighs only 10 pounds in the hand, and Jiujiu doesn't feel heavy with his current physical fitness. Then it was casting arrows and steel balls, as well as spare arrow boxes and steel ball magazines, and the remaining 50 energy points were also consumed before stopping the first mechanical manufacturing. After the weapon was successfully manufactured, of course, the power and performance of the weapon must be tested. Jiujiu found a dartboard, took the mechanical crossbow and walked out of the room, came to the woods outside, fixed the target on a big tree, retreated 100 meters away, and tested the power of the weapon. Holding the mechanical crossbow, Jiujiu took a deep breath, then put the target plate 100 meters away into the sight on the mechanical crossbow and pulled the trigger. 3 sounds of buzz, whoosh, do sounded in succession, and a crossbow arrow was steadily inserted into the tree trunk, but it was quite a distance away from the target plate. This made Jiujiu, who was using the mechanical crossbow for the first time, blush. He didn't expect to miss the target in the first shot. It was really embarrassing. However, this was not Jiujiu's fault. After all, even if the system gave him the ability of a junior combat master, it was the first time to use it, so it was inevitable that he would be a little unfamiliar. After thinking about it, Jiujiu picked up the mechanical crossbow and walked forward for dozens of meters, approaching the distance to 50 meters, and then picked up the crossbow again to practice shooting. This time it was much better. Although he didn't hit the bullseye as he thought, at least he didn't miss the target. Walking forward and taking a closer look at the 2 crossbow arrows, Jiujiu nodded with satisfaction, and recognized the power of the mechanical crossbow in his heart. A crossbow arrow shot 100 meters away penetrated the tree trunk to a depth of 5 centimeters, and the arrow shot 50 meters away penetrated 10 centimeters. You can imagine how much damage it would cause if it were shot into an animal or a human body. Jiujiu was very satisfied with the mechanical crossbow. Its power was equivalent to that of a modern rifle, and the sound was not loud. Its concealment was greater than that of a rifle, making it very suitable for sneak attacks and combat. Retreating 50 meters away, Jiujiu continued to practice shooting. After shooting 10 crossbow arrows in a quiver, Jiujiu was becoming more and more familiar with the use of mechanical crossbows. Changing the quiver was as simple and quick as expected, just like a firearm. After shooting another quiver of crossbow arrows, Jiujiu continued to test the power of steel ball projectiles. Very good, with the shooting speed and power of a pistol, it is definitely enough as a close-range killing weapon. After shooting a magazine of steel ball projectiles, Jiujiu took back the arrows and returned home, lying on the bed thinking about future plans. It is now 2008, and there are still a few months before Tony manufactures the first generation of Mark mechas, which means that there are only a few more days before the Marvel plot begins, so he must improve his strength as soon as possible. When thinking about improving strength, Jiujiu thought of the system's time travel function, so he asked in his mind. System, what is the use of the time travel function? System. The time travel function is available once a month. The host can collect materials for mechanical creations in other worlds, complete special tasks to obtain mechanical manufacturing drawings, and improve the host's mechanical hunter strength. Friendly reminder to the host's time travel is the body's travel, which means that once the host dies in other worlds, it is completely dead. After listening to the system's explanation, Jiujiu couldn't help but take a deep breath and asked unwillingly. System, can I ask, is the world I travel to random? Will it exceed my current strength? 003 Hunting the World of the Walking Dead. System. Yes, host. The world you travel to in time and space is random, but you can rest assured that the world you travel to each time will not be too much beyond your current ability. As long as you deal with it carefully, there will be no life safety issues. Hearing this, Jiujiu breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, not bad. But in his heart, he was thinking, now that the Marvel world is ready to travel through time and space, let's do the first time travel. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Thinking about it, Jiujiu fell asleep unconsciously. XT morning, Jiujiu got up early, had breakfast, and found the two guns left by his father. The pistol is good and is more popular among Americans, Glock 19, hereinafter referred to as Glock. The entire frame, including the grip, is made of integral injection molding of engineering plastics. Only the slide groove part in contact with the slide is reinforced with steel. The trigger and magazine are also made of plastic, which greatly improves the performance and is also convenient for maintenance. The conventional loading is 15 rounds, and a special 33-round magazine can also be loaded. The initial velocity is 360 meters per second, firing 9 by 19 millimeters parabellum pistol bullets. The whole gun weighs only 594 grams and has an effective range of 50 meters. Happily, the pistol was also put into the two spaces. Fortunately, the predecessor, Dad, prepared 3 33-round magazines, so there is no need to worry about the problem of insufficient firepower. As for the rifle, it is the familiar Remington M870, so I won't introduce it here. In the future, the rifle will also be put into the space, and the bullets will also be put in. Jiujiu will feel more at ease. The only regret is that there are relatively few bullets, a total of about 200 rounds. There is no way because I am not old enough to legally buy guns, but don't worry, there is a chance to get more bullets in other worlds. After doing all this, what Jiujiu has to do is to familiarize himself with melee skills as soon as possible and find melee self-defense weapons suitable for him. While it is still early, Jiujiu found a fighting club nearby, paid the money and began to familiarize himself with the fighting skills instilled in him by the system. First, he practiced fighting skills independently, and then found a coach from the club to practice with him. The effect is obvious. From the initial unfamiliarity, being beaten by the coach for fun, to later beating the coach, it only took 3 short days, which made the coach amazed and even persuaded Jiujiu to join the bullshit MMA competition. Jiujiu is not interested in playing with those who want money but not life. He has more important things to do, such as traveling through time and space to improve his strength, etc. In a few days, Jiujiu graduated from the fighting club. In the middle, he bought 2 Nepalese curved knives commonly known as dog-leg knives through the relationship with his coach. He also chose a 75 caliber light knife, which is suitable for long-term swinging and convenient for equipping on both sides of the thighs when necessary. You can refer to Alice's shape in Resident Evil. A week later, after becoming familiar with the basic movements of swinging the dog-leg knife, Jiujiu began to prepare for his first time traveling through time and space. Food and drinking water, referring to the encounters in the novel, must be prepared in sufficient quantities, such as canned luncheon meat, canned fruit, functional drinks, mineral water, instant noodles, fast food, chocolate energy bars, bread, black bread, and even chicken ham and raw beef are also prepared in large quantities, enough for Jiujiu to eat for a year. Taking advantage of these few days, he bought some more medals and cast thousands of special crossbows. He also bought a lot of steel balls, and even made 20 magazines of each kind, and filled them with arrows and steel balls. This firepower is enough to support Jiujiu's non-stop fighting for a day. Seeing that January is about to end, Jiujiu doesn't plan to wait any longer, and plans to start his first-time travel tonight. The clock struck 12, and Jiujiu, who was carrying a backpack, stood in the bedroom, took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and said to the system with determination. System, I'm going to start my first-time space shuttle. System. The host is going to travel through time and space for the first time, and the world he travels through is the world of The Walking Dead. The host can stay in this world for 1 year, and the system will not issue any mandatory tasks to the host. All tasks are triggered randomly, and the corresponding mechanical manufacturing drawings and upgrade experience can be obtained after completion. During this period, the host can end the travel and return to this world at any time. Special reminder. The viruses and microorganisms that the host contacts and may carry in the world will be cleared during the host's return process. Please prepare the host, the travel is about to begin. Start the travel. Traveling. Traveling. Traveling completed. I wish the host good luck. Friendly reminder, the time the host travels through the world is equal to 1 year in the real world for 1 hour. When Jiujiu heard the system say that the world he traveled through was the world of The Walking Dead, he felt bad. The danger of this world is comparable to that of the Resident Evil. Although there are no powerful mutants such as the Creeper, Messies, the Tyrant, etc., there are also endless zombies. If things go wrong, Jiujiu will be surrounded by zombies, and if he is bitten or scratched, he may become a zombie. But after thinking about it carefully, Jiujiu was relieved. Didn't he listen to what the system said? Can I come back at any time? In the process of coming back, will all the viruses and microorganisms that I may carry be cleared by the system? According to this logic, as long as I am in danger and desperate, it is no big problem to choose to return to the Marvel world. What the hell? Who wants to be bitten by that ugly monster? Not to mention being bitten, even if Jiujiu is scratched, he will not do it. As he was thinking wildly, his eyes blurred, and Jiujiu disappeared in the bedroom and appeared on the roof of a 3-story building. Jiujiu, who had just crossed over, immediately took out the mechanical crossbow from the space, used the mechanical device to easily pull the crossbow string, and looked around vigilantly, guarding against a zombie coming out from somewhere. If it bites him, he will become the one with the shortest time in history. Fortunately, the door of the passage on the roof was tightly closed, and the surrounding environment was also empty, so creatures like zombies could not be hidden at all. Jiujiu breathed a sigh of relief. He first observed the surrounding buildings and found that there was no one around before he began to arm himself. He carefully placed the mechanical crossbow on the ground, first took out the equipment he had prepared long ago from the space, put on the stab-proof clothing he had specially purchased, put on a military jacket, inserted the pistol into the holster on his chest, and also inserted 3 33-round magazines into the magazine holster on his chest. He put on the Remington holster on his back, inserted the M870 into the holster, and tied the bullet belt around his waist. He tied leggings on the appropriate positions on both sides of his legs and inserted the dog-leg knife, striving to be able to pull out weapons at any time for close combat. 004 First kill and hidden rewards. After doing all this, Jiujiu looked at his appearance with satisfaction. Well, he was fully armed. He nodded, walked to the edge of the roof, and looked down at the ground. Google search reading. Google search TWKAN. This site made Jiujiu feel sick. It was okay to watch it on the computer. It was really disgusting to watch it in reality. Those who were completely transformed were okay, but those who were unfortunately eaten by part of the body were really disgusting. The empty abdominal cavity on the remains of the body, from time to time, there was sticky blood dripping to the ground. Jiujiu, who had good eyesight, even saw a lot of maggots crawling in and out of the empty abdominal cavity, which made people feel terrified. There was nothing to hesitate. In order to make his eyes feel better, Jiujiu picked up the mechanical crossbow, put the scope on the head of the zombie, and used the steel ball magazine that had been installed long ago. The zombie stayed where it was, but its head shook slightly unconsciously, which was very helpful for Jiujiu to aim and shoot. XT moment, he took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. The crossbow string bounced back with a hum and then restrung with a click. The 6mm steel ball was shot out with a whiz, passing through the distance of 30 meters upstairs and downstairs, and hit the zombie's head with a soul-piercing puff. In the scope, Jiujiu clearly saw a thumb-sized blood hole in the zombie's head, and a small amount of blood splashed out. The zombie fell to the ground without a word, covering its empty and disgusting abdominal cavity, which made Jiujiu feel much better. What made Jiujiu curious was that he did not feel any nausea and discomfort because of shooting a zombie, but was a little excited and eager to try. At this time, the system sounded in Jiujiu's mind. The host completes the hidden task of killing zombies for the first time, and is rewarded with 100 upgrade experience points and a special mechanical dog blueprint. You only need to find the right dog creature soul and metal materials to create the host's first mechanical pet. Reminder, the host's level is upgraded. The current level is 1, and 5 attribute points are obtained, which have been automatically allocated to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. Please keep up the good work, kill more zombies, and complete the corresponding hidden tasks to upgrade the level. Hearing the system's prompt, Jiujiu was really surprised. He didn't know how to gain experience and upgrade the level, but now he knows. All experience is gained through killing, the only difference is that killing alone does not give experience. Just think about it and you will know that there will be endless tasks to trigger in the future, which must be the best way to quickly upgrade and improve your strength. The only thing to be serious is to keep trying to trigger the task. Thinking of this, Jiujiu eagerly opened his information panel to check the changes in his zodiac sign after the upgrade. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, mechanical hunter. Level 1, 0/200. Attributes. Strength, 5. Stamina, 5. Intelligence, 3. Spirit, 3. Agility, 3. Speed, 11 meters per second. Energy, 300, 3 points/minute recovery speed. Occupational talents and skills. 1. Primary Combat Master. 2. Primary Mechanical Manufacturing Master. Pet, none. Mount, none. Special Space, Mechanical Manufacturing Space 100 square meters. Drawing, Mechanical Dog Manufacturing Drawing *1. Note, Time Travel Function has 0 times remaining. Note, the only mainline Super God level mission, kill Thanos and his lackeys. 6 cosmic gems are rewarded for successful mission. At a glance, Jiujiu knew what was going on. I guessed correctly. The main attributes of my profession are indeed intelligence, spirit, and agility. The attributes that are automatically added when upgrading are also clear at a glance. Each level up adds 5 to strength and stamina, and 1 to intelligence, spirit, and agility. The most important thing is to obtain the blueprints. It seems that you have to complete the tasks to obtain them, which solves the dilemma of Jiujiu not having mechanical blueprints. This also increases Jiujiu's motivation to quickly upgrade his strength. There is nothing to say. He closed the system panel and raised the mechanical crossbow again. The target is the zombies wandering under the building. Compared to the crossbow, steel balls are easy to use. The magazine with a capacity of 30 steel ball bullets allows Jiujiu to shoot and kill zombies easily. For a while, the top of the building was occasionally rang with the sound of buzz, whoosh, and puff. Soon, more than 10 zombies under the building were all shot and killed by Jiujiu. It's just a pity that the system seems to think that it is too easy for Jiujiu to shoot zombies. Originally, I thought I only needed to shoot 10 more zombies to complete the second hidden task. Unexpectedly, the system did not do what Jiujiu wished, but when Jiujiu checked the system, he knew that he had triggered the second hidden task. Hidden Task 2, Shoot Zombies, 13 out of 100 heads, complete to get experience 500, Mechanical Trap Manufacturing Blueprint *1. Seeing this task information, Jiujiu was uncontrollably excited. Mechanical trap, just think about it and you know its power must be extraordinary. Unfortunately, the blueprint is not in hand yet, and you have to wait until the task is completed before you can check the specific effect. Excited, Jiujiu closed the task information, replaced the steel ball magazine with the crossbow arrow magazine. But it was because all the zombies within 50 meters were shot dead by Jiujiu. If he wanted to continue to shoot zombies 100 meters away on the roof, he had to switch to a crossbow with a longer shooting distance. Fortunately, there were quite a few zombies within 150 meters, at least 70 or 80, which was enough for Jiujiu's actual combat training. Yes, Jiujiu regarded the task of shooting zombies as an opportunity for his actual combat training, first to further familiarize himself with the performance of the mechanical crossbow, and second to further improve his actual combat shooting ability. This time, Jiujiu's target was a female zombie 80 meters away from him in a straight line. From the scope, Jiujiu could not see the specific age of this female zombie, but only that she was a woman. This female zombie had her head slightly lowered, her mouth open, and blood on the corners of her mouth. Her body was standing in place and shaking slightly from side to side, which increased the difficulty of Jiujiu's shooting. But it didn't matter. Jiujiu had plenty of time and arrows to improve the accuracy of his long-range shooting. Take a deep breath, aim, predict the shooting angle, and you don't need to consider the effect of wind speed on the crossbow arrow at 80 meters. You just need to pull the trigger at the right time. A few seconds later, Jiujiu seized the opportunity and pulled the trigger. The crossbow arrow missed the zombie's head with a buzz, whoosh, clang sound, and hit the ground, attracting many zombies who heard the sound and gathered to the place where the crossbow arrow fell. Cursing secretly, bad luck. Jiujiu picked up the mechanical crossbow again and aimed and shot. 005 washing face with zombie blood. This time, the crossbow arrows did not miss, and accurately pierced into the head of a zombie, and the zombie fell to the ground and died. Jiujiu secretly called out, yes, took a deep breath and continued to aim, and continued to shoot with a buzz buzz buzz. Not bad, except for the ES arrow that missed, the remaining 9 crossbow arrows hit 6 zombies, 4 of which were headshot, and the remaining ones also hit the bodies of the zombies. In general, the hit rate was not satisfactory, reaching 60%, but the headshot rate was only 40%. Jiujiu was certainly not satisfied with such a result. You know, this world is the world of zombies, and there is no 100% headshot rate. He dare not go down to the ground to collect supplies. If he misses a zombie and pounces on him, he will be dead. He took down the empty arrow box neatly, took out a full arrow box from the closed space, and put it on the mechanical crossbow with a click. Half kneeling on the roof, he continued to aim at the zombies downstairs and shoot. The shooting effect of the 10 crossbow arrows has been significantly improved, with a 70% hit rate and a 50% headshot rate. He nodded with satisfaction, changed the arrow box and continued shooting. The shooting effect of the 10 arrow boxes still satisfied Jiujiu. The hit rate within 90 meters finally reached 100%, and the headshot rate reached 70%. The second hidden task was also completed by more than 80%, and he was almost able to get a new blueprint. The zombies below had been shot and killed. Jiujiu stood up and replaced the steel ball magazine for the mechanical crossbow. After taking a deep breath to encourage himself for a while, he filled the empty arrow box and magazine in the space with ammunition, and then picked up the mechanical crossbow again and walked downstairs. The stairwell became a little darker because there was no light. Fortunately, Jiujiu had prepared it in advance. The mechanical crossbow was equipped with a wolf-eye flashlight. With the illumination of the flashlight, Jiujiu didn't have to go downstairs in the dark. In the silent stairwell, Jiujiu could not hear any other sounds, only his own light footsteps and the slightly nervous bouncing heartbeat. The 11th floor was safe, no zombies appeared, the 10th floor was also safe, the 9th floor, the 8th floor. Until the 3rd floor, a zombie in the stairwell heard Jiujiu's footsteps, howled "ah" and rushed towards Jiujiu. Fortunately, Jiujiu was no longer a novice, and his reaction was not slow. He quickly pulled the trigger of the mechanical crossbow, and a steel ball was ejected. The sounds of buzz, whoosh, and puff rang out one after another, and the steel ball accurately shot into the head of the zombie 10 meters away from Jiujiu. The zombie fell to the ground with a bang, and the sound was not very loud, but it was heard far away in the silent corridor, and immediately alarmed the other zombies scattered on the 3rd floor. After hearing the footsteps and faint, ho-ho sounds in the corridor on the 3rd floor, Jiujiu retreated to the stairwell between the 3rd and 4th floors without hesitation, standing there with a slightly tense body, aiming the mechanical crossbow at the stairwell on the 3rd floor. XT moment, the door of the stairwell was pushed open, and several zombies rushed in one after another. They were attracted by the flashlight on Jiujiu's mechanical crossbow, and XT moment they all rushed to the stairs with ah. There was nothing to hesitate, Jiujiu immediately began to aim and shoot, and the steel balls buzzed and shot continuously. At a distance of more than 10 meters, Jiujiu's hit rate and headshot rate reached 100%. It only took a few seconds, and several zombies were shot dead by Jiujiu's headshots, and the corpses of the zombies fell all over the stairs. At this moment, Jiujiu was slightly relieved, but then the stench of the decaying zombies came to his nose, and Jiujiu had to endure it for a long time before he completely suppressed the desire to vomit. He hurriedly took out a mask from his waist bag and put it on. Although it still couldn't completely block the attack of the stench, it was finally better. Jiujiu didn't plan to stay upstairs any longer. He hurried down the stairs and passed through the gap between the zombies to the stairwell on the 3rd floor. He continued to go down to the 2nd floor. Fortunately, there were no zombies in the stairwell. Jiujiu was sure that there must be many zombies in the corridor on the 2nd floor, but in such a narrow space, Jiujiu didn't plan to attract monsters here. There would be zombies for him to hunt after leaving the building. Finally, he came out of the building. Before Jiujiu could breathe a sigh of relief, he met a zombie head-on. Fortunately, Jiujiu knew that this was the zombie world, and he did not relax his vigilance at all. When the zombie was about to pounce on him, opened its big mouth full of rotten stench, and bit his neck, the mechanical crossbow was raised, and with a sound of buzz, whoosh, and puff, it shot the zombie's mouth and back of the head. The ending was that the zombie died, but the smelly blood splashed from the zombie's mouth sprayed all over Jiujiu's head and face. Ugh! Jiujiu could no longer hold it in, bent down, and vomited violently. This was not killing zombies from a long distance, nor was it simply seeing blood, but being sprayed with blood in the face. Jiujiu, who had never experienced it before, could not bear it, and it would be strange if he didn't vomit. However, he didn't know that his vomiting sound alarmed the zombies wandering in the building. When he raised his head and looked at the door, he found Jiujiu who was still vomiting. XT moment, the zombie screamed, "Ho ho," and rushed towards Jiujiu. The zombie's movement speed was not very fast, but Jiujiu was vomiting so he didn't notice it. Jiujiu, who was vomiting, suddenly heard the "ho ho" sound behind him and was immediately frightened. At this moment, the primary combat master instinct instilled by the system made Jiujiu stop vomiting immediately. With no time to lose, he held up the mechanical crossbow in his right hand, turned around and fell to the ground. At the same time, the trigger of the mechanical crossbow was pulled, and a steel ball shot out and shot into the head of the zombie who lost his target and fell to the ground. With a puff, Jiujiu was washed by the blood of the zombies again. This time, Jiujiu seemed to have gotten used to being washed by the blood of the zombies and did not vomit again. Just lying on the ground, one hand still holding the mechanical crossbow, the other hand supporting the smelly corpse of the zombie, panting rapidly, thinking, "This is too thrilling. If I didn't have the reaction of a primary combat master, I would have been bitten by the zombie." XT moment, the system's voice sounded in Jiujiu's mind like a heavenly sound. Congratulations to the host, you have completed the 2nd hidden mission, killed 100 out of 100 zombies, gained 500 experience points, and a mechanical trap blueprint. Tip, the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is level 2. 5 attribute points have been obtained, which have been automatically allocated to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. Tip, the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is level 3. 5 attribute points have been obtained, which have been automatically allocated to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. 006 Make mechanical dogs and mechanical traps. With the increase in level, physical strength quickly returned to Jiujiu's body. He endured the nausea in his heart and reached out to push away the corpse of the zombie on his body. Jiujiu stood up from the ground in embarrassment. Looking at the surroundings, he found that there were not many zombies wandering on the street. Jiujiu took the time to glance at the drawings of mechanical trap manufacturing. It was found that like the mechanical dog, the required materials were not difficult to find, but only various metal parts were needed, which were much easier to find than the materials required for the mechanical dog. The manufacture of the mechanical dog not only requires various metals to be cast into parts, but also requires finding suitable batteries. After the transformation, the energy points charged by oneself are converted into electrical energy to drive the mechanical dog to fight. There was no time to check the attributes after the upgrade. Anyway, the system automatically added points after the upgrade. Jiujiu took a step and began to move carefully. Just after shooting a zombie, the third hidden task was triggered as expected. I looked at the task introduction. Hidden Task 3, Kill the Zombie, 1/10,000, Head, Reward Experience 5,000, Ordinary Mount Modified Motorcycle Blueprint. He sighed helplessly and thought. The system is really cruel. The first hidden task is 1, the second is 100, and the third is 10,000. How long will it take to kill them? Helpless, the system is the system, and it doesn't explain to ye Jiujiu at all, as if you can complete it if you want. Forget it, let's continue. Who told me to rely on the system to improve my strength and fight against Thanos? However, the purpose of continuing the action also has other work to do, that is, collecting various metals and batteries. Jiujiu collected all the good cars and metals he encountered on the road into the space, and after finding a safe resting place, he used the space function to smelt them into various metal blocks to make his own pet mechanical dog. After a busy day, the number of zombies out of 10,000 has been completed by 103. How many more are there? Anyway, Jiujiu is too lazy to count, it's too far away. Before dark, Jiujiu finally found a safe hiding place without zombies, and Jiujiu had time to check his upgraded attribute panel. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, Mechanical Hunter. Level 3, 0/400. Attributes. Strength, 5. Stamina, 5. Intelligence, 5. Spirit, 5. Agility, 5. Speed, 13 meters per second. Energy, 500, recovery speed at 5 points/minute. Occupational talents and skills. 1. Primary Combat Master. 2. Primary Mechanical Manufacturing Master. Pet, none. Mount, none. Special Space, Mechanical Manufacturing Space 100 square meters. Drawings, Mechanical Dog Manufacturing Drawings *1, Mechanical Trap Drawings *1. Note, Time and Space Shuttle function has 0 times remaining. Note, the only main-line Super God-level task, kill Thanos and his lackeys. The successful task will reward 6 cosmic gems. 500 energy is full, which is only enough for Jiujiu to squander for one night. There is nothing much to say. The consciousness enters the mechanical space, and with the help of the system power, more than 10 cars are removed and the materials are piled up in different categories. Then, using the function of the space furnace, all the metal parts are melted out to make the parts needed for the mechanical dog. This process actually consumed 300 energy points of Jiujiu. With the experience of assembling the mechanical crossbow before, Jiujiu consciously controlled the workbench and assembled the mechanical dog completely. After half an hour of busy work, a silver-white mechanical dog with a body length of 2 meters, without the 1 meter long tail, and a shoulder height of 1.5 meters was assembled. I couldn't help but feel a little proud in my heart. Looking at this extremely powerful mechanical creature, Jiujiu had an unconcealable sense of accomplishment. Unfortunately, although there is a battery, the mechanical dog still lacks the soul of a dog creature and cannot be driven for the time being. Jiujiu had to force himself to resist the urge to test the combat power of the mechanical dog. He buried his head and began to make parts for the mechanical trap. This time, the role of the crossbow and steel balls was reflected. This kind of thing, which is only 50 centimeters in size but weighs more than 30 kilograms, is the best weapon for Jiujiu to kill zombies on a large scale. Although it is only 50 centimeters in size, it is extremely powerful, and the killing effect even exceeds the explosion range of a grenade. Once it is deployed, the killing radius within a radius of 20 meters after it is triggered. The hundreds of crossbow arrows and 200 steel balls installed inside will make the enemies and zombies who triggered it feel what intensive indiscriminate attacks are. When the energy points were consumed, Jiujiu assembled 2 mechanical traps and filled them with crossbow arrows and steel balls. By the way, he replenished the crossbow arrows and steel balls that he had almost consumed during the day, and replenished them with 1,000 each. He filled the 20 arrow boxes and magazines with ammunition and arrows, and left the space with consciousness. He arranged a simple early warning device around and rested. This simple early warning device was learned by Jiujiu from the show when he was watching The Walking Dead. Just use ropes to enclose your campsite and hang empty cans on it. Once zombies or animals touch it, it can temporarily block the zombies and make a noise to alert you. After a good night's sleep, when Jiujiu woke up, it was exactly 8 o'clock in the morning. After sitting on the ground and stretching his back, he got up and made himself a simple breakfast, which was just instant noodles, ham sausage, and a boiled egg, and sat on the ground to enjoy it. Not to mention, in the doomsday environment, Jiujiu was still very satisfied to be able to eat such a hearty breakfast. Standing up, Jiujiu planned to experiment with the effectiveness of the mechanical trap today to see if he could kill more zombies at one time. After walking out of the hiding place, the number of zombies wandering on the street was obviously much less. Just a few dozen scattered zombies were not worth Jiujiu using his big killer, mechanical trap. It took half a day to kill more than 100 zombies, and the supplies in the city that Jiujiu liked were almost collected. After lunch, Jiujiu decided to leave this place and go somewhere else. As soon as he walked out of the city, he met a few stray dogs eating the rotten flesh of zombies. One of the stray dogs immediately attracted Jiujiu's attention. This is a black Caucasian dog, which looks like a lion. From its strong limbs, it can be seen that this dog must be strong in combat. Jiujiu had read the introduction of this dog on the website of his ES Life. The body structure is coordinated, strong and powerful, the personality is stable and energetic, the hearing is developed and the eyesight is good, it is docile and obedient to the owner, the ability to protect the owner is super strong, and it is very alert and good at searching. Jiujiu subconsciously thought. Isn't this the perfect soul that I activated the mechanical dog? Before Jiujiu could get excited, several stray dogs discovered Jiujiu's existence. All stopped eating and roared threateningly at Jiujiu, especially the black Caucasian, whose roar was even deeper and more powerful, full of threat. 007 Activate Mechanical Pet War Wolf. Jiujiu, who became more and more satisfied as he watched, immediately picked up the mechanical crossbow and aimed at Caucasus' head. Google search reading. But after hesitating for a long time, Jiujiu couldn't bear to shoot the crossbow and kill the Caucasian dog. After hesitating for a moment, Jiujiu couldn't bear it, but the Caucasus showed his fierce look. Seeing that he was no threat to Jiujiu, he howled with a few stray dogs and rushed towards Jiujiu. All right. Jiujiu can't bear it anymore. I regard you as human friends, but you want to bite me, so I will have to let you die. The crossbow machine was triggered, and the crossbow arrows were shot out continuously. Needless to say, the power of the mechanical crossbow was needless to say. With an effective killing range of 150 meters, the power can be imagined within a distance of more than 20 meters. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Coupled with the speed of the mechanical crossbow shooting, Gaokazuo and several stray dogs were killed one by the crossbow arrows before they could get within 10 meters of Jiujiu. Just kidding, Jiujiu is someone who has killed hundreds of walking corpses. Not to mention that he can hit the target with perfect accuracy from 100 meters away, but he can still do it with complete confidence within a few dozen meters. After killing a few stray dogs, Jiujiu carefully walked to the dog corpses and got the system prompt as expected. On the heads of several dog corpses, dog-like souls floated that only Jiujiu could see. Following the system prompts, Jiujiu only collected the soul of Caucasus and left here impatiently. He wants to find a safe place to activate the function of the mechanical dog and become a powerful pet helper for himself. After searching for a long time and shooting several scattered zombies along the way, Jiujiu finally found a relatively quiet and safe place. After looking around for a moment, Jiujiu's consciousness entered the mechanical space and came to the mechanical dog. However, he was stunned on the spot and muttered secretly. How the hell am I going to install the soul of Caucasus into the head of a mechanical dog? Just as Jiujiu finished mumbling, the system voice sounded. Prompt the host to take out the soul of the dog creature and put it on the head of the mechanical dog. The mechanical dog can automatically absorb the soul of the creature for fusion. Hearing this, Jiujiu breathed a sigh of relief and murmured. It's okay. I didn't expect the system to be so user-friendly. Whether it's manufacturing or modification, these operations are all foolproof operations, but it's very convenient for me. While placing the almost transparent soul of Caucasus above the head of the mechanical dog. XD moment, Caucasus' soul seemed to be attracted by something and entered the head of the mechanical dog. Immediately afterwards, the system sound sounded again. Congratulations to the host for getting the dog creature soul. The combat pet is being activated. The Caucasian canine soul has been integrated with the mechanical dog and is being activated. The activation was successful. Congratulations to the host for completing the professional hidden tasks. 1. Obtaining the first combat mechanical pet, a mechanical dog. Gain 500 experience points. Tip: the host level has been improved. The current level is 4, and 5 attribute points have been obtained, which have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by the host. Note: the host can name the mechanical dog, which can greatly enhance the tacit understanding between the host and the combat pet. Note: the host is reminded that although the mechanical dog is a mechanical creation, it is not completely invincible. It will also be destroyed by external forces. Please treat the mechanical pets kindly. Note: the energy source used by the mechanical dog to maintain its activities is space energy converted into electrical energy. It can continue to fight for an hour at full capacity. The mechanical dog can be modified a second time in the future to maximize its energy. Note: for the data of the pet mechanical dog, please check it yourself. After listening to the system's explanation, Jiujiu couldn't wait to take the mechanical dog out of the mechanical manufacturing space. He excitedly looked at the activated mechanical dog in front of him, nodded and said it was not bad. The mechanical dog, which was originally a lifeless metal lump, had now changed its appearance. The position of its eyes first flashed a red light, and then returned to the appearance of a camera. The difference is that the original camera was rigid, but now it is like a human eye and can be flexibly rotated to see the surrounding scenery. XT moment, the mechanical dog shook its metal body up and down. After a while of adapting, it looked up at Jiujiu. Then it moved its metal limbs and walked towards Jiujiu. I thought that the mechanical dog was made of metal, and there would inevitably be a squeaking sound of metal parts rubbing when it moved, but surprisingly, no noise was made. It was as if it were a real dog, moving extremely lightly. If it weren't for the metal tail that was more than 1 meter long and swinging behind it, Jiujiu wouldn't even think of this mechanical dog as a metal creation. Don't underestimate the mechanical dog's tail. It's more than 1 meter long. It's not just for cuteness. It's very lethal. Not only can it swipe 360 degrees, but the tip of its tail is as sharp as a dagger. You don't need to try to know that if you are hit by its tail, whether it is a walking corpse or a living person, it will be seriously injured. Reaching out to touch the mechanical dog that was rubbing its metal head against his thigh, Jiujiu couldn't help but blurt out. Although you are a dog or a mechanical dog, I still hope that you can be as fierce as a wolf. I will call you Wolf Warrior. The mechanical dog War Wolf seemed to understand Jiujiu's words and was very satisfied with his new name. Hearing the words, he rubbed Jiujiu's thigh more intimately. Seeing the intimacy of War Wolf towards him, Jiujiu couldn't help but smile slightly, then opened the pet panel to check the specific data of War Wolf. Pet name: War Wolf, mechanical dog. Combat data. Attack power: 1000 kilograms. Every 100 power consumed can maintain combat for 1 hour, and daily behavior for 24 hours. Combat characteristics: biting, clawing, impact, tail sweep, stabbing. Innate abilities: reconnaissance, vigilance, and keen sense of smell. Note: if damaged in battle, metal and energy can be used in space for repair, and the specific consumption depends on the degree of damage. Note: in battle, energy can be infused into the pet at any time to maintain the pet's actions. Seeing the data of War Wolf, to be honest, Jiujiu was not satisfied. An attack power of only 1000 kilograms is not enough compared to those bosses in the Marvel world who can destroy a building at any time. But Jiujiu believes that with the power of the system, he will definitely get the drawings of the transformation of the mechanical dog in the future to improve the combat ability of the mechanical dog. Let's take a look at my upgraded attributes. Name: Jiujiu. Age: 16. Occupation: mechanical hunter. Level: Level 4, 100/500. Attributes: Strength: 3. Stamina: 3. Intelligence: 6. Spirit: 6. Agility: 6. Speed: 14 meters per second. Energy: 600, 6 points/minute recovery speed. Occupational talents and skills: 1. Primary Combat Master. 2. Primary Mechanical Manufacturing Master. Pet: Mechanical Dog War Wolf. Mount: none. Special space, mechanical manufacturing space 100 square meters, mechanical trap *2. Drawings, none. Note, time travel function has 0 times remaining. Note, the only mainline super god level mission, kill Thanos and his lackeys. The successful mission will reward 6 cosmic gems. 008 The fighting power of Wolf Warrior. What satisfied Jiujiu the most was the increase in energy. 600 energy could sustain the mechanical dog in combat for 6 hours. With the energy restored every minute, 7 hours was no problem at all. Google search reading. This gave Jiujiu a powerful assistant in the world of The Walking Dead, and he was no longer alone in the battle. Thinking of this, Jiujiu took the mechanical dog out of the space, and the change of environment immediately allowed the werewolf to quickly enter his role. At this time, the werewolf, like a pet who was loyal to its master, looked around vigilantly, and the metal nose was shaking from time to time to identify the surrounding smells. Jiujiu touched the head of the werewolf with satisfaction and said comfortingly, "It's safe here, let's go out too. Let me see how strong your combat power is." After that, he took the werewolf to the outside of the street. After walking half of the street, he finally saw dozens of zombies, wandering scattered on the street. The wolf warrior found the enemy, but did not attack on his own initiative. Instead, he looked at Jiujiu in a humane way, and the eyes of the camera showed the intention of asking for a fight. Jiujiu also wanted to see how strong the wolf warrior was, so he reached out and patted the wolf warrior's head and said softly, "Go, wolf warrior. Kill those zombies for me." Upon hearing this, wolf warrior did not howl, but moved his limbs and rushed towards several zombies. An unexpected scene happened to Jiujiu. Wolf warrior did not make any sound during his actions, and there was no smell of living things on his body, so he naturally would not attract the attention of the zombies. At a distance of more than 50 meters, wolf warrior rushed to a zombie in just a few breaths. He jumped 3 meters high in the air and bit a zombie's head. In the metal dog's mouth, the sharp metal fangs bit the zombie's head. The corpse of the zombie fell to the ground with the wolf warrior. The difference was that wolf warrior dodged lightly as soon as it landed, and hit the zombies that surrounded it with its head. The huge force knocked the zombies back. Then wolf warrior stood up. The height of more than 3 meters was just enough for wolf warrior to stretch out its front paws and easily and accurately hit the zombies' heads. 2 slaps sounded like the sound of watermelons breaking. Even Jiujiu, who was 50 meters away, could hear it clearly. This was not over yet. Wolf warrior's tail swept out fiercely, sweeping away the zombies that surrounded him. The tip of the tail did not stop, and it pierced into the head of a zombie with a puff. Pulling out the tip of the tail, one after another, like a swordsman, pierced into the heads of the surrounding zombies quickly. Seeing this scene, Jiujiu was indescribably happy. At least it showed that in this world, wolf warrior's combat power was invincible. Not to mention dozens of zombies, even in the zombie tide, as long as there is sufficient energy supply, it only takes time to kill them all. The battle lasted only a few minutes, and dozens of zombies on the street were killed by werewolf, and it quickly returned to Jiujiu. It can be seen that for werewolf, protecting the master is the most important thing, and fighting is only secondary. The strange thing is that werewolf bit and scratched his tail, but his body was not stained with even a trace of zombie blood. This made Jiujiu feel very unbalanced. Why should he be sprayed with zombie blood when he killed the zombies, but werewolf didn't? However, Jiujiu was relieved soon. After all, he was a living person, not completely digitized, and it was normal to have these reactions. As for why the mechanical dog werewolf was like this, isn't this a good thing? Is it a good thing to clean the filth embedded in the dog's mouth and clean the blood on the body for werewolf after the war? Satisfiedly reaching out to touch the metal dog head of werewolf, Jiujiu had nothing to be dissatisfied with. The combat effectiveness and loyalty of the werewolf were reflected in the first battle, which made Jiujiu sigh at the power of the system. He looked at the energy consumption of the werewolf again. What made Jiujiu depressed was that it had consumed 1/5 of its energy in just a short time. This made Jiujiu give up the idea of rushing into the zombie tide with the werewolf to kill all the zombies. Nonsense, if he really rushed in, let alone whether the werewolf could kill all the zombies in an hour, you have to know that there are not thousands or even tens of thousands of zombies that can be called a zombie tide. Once the energy of the war wolf is exhausted, how can he take the war wolf back? Forget it, the number of tasks is 10,000, so let's take it slowly. After all, he can still stay in this world for a year, and he will complete it sooner or later. Thinking of this, Jiujiu no longer hesitated, stretched out his hand and pressed on the head of the war wolf. After replenishing the energy, one person and one dog continued on the road. While killing zombies, collecting metals and supplies, after collecting a certain amount, Jiujiu will find an opportunity to enter the space, melt the metal into metal blocks and pile them up, and the supplies are also piled together in different categories. After walking for a day, Jiujiu finally knew where he was now. Seeing the signboard, "Georgia welcomes you," standing on the side of the road, Jiujiu realized that this was the territory of Georgia in the United States. After thinking carefully, this place is where the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead took place. Jiujiu naturally knew that after finding the protagonist Rick and others, the mission would definitely be triggered, but the key is that he didn't know where the protagonists were. Helplessly, he could only wander around aimlessly. Killing zombies to complete hidden missions is not bad, isn't it? A day passed, and although a lot of zombies were killed, the number was still far from 10,000. After replenishing the energy for War Wolf, Jiujiu entered the mechanical space with his consciousness and continued to make mechanical traps. Jiujiu understood that if he wanted to complete the task as soon as possible, mechanical traps would be his indispensable killer weapon, and the more the better. Fortunately, during the day's operation, Jiujiu obtained a lot of metal, which could fully meet his consumption needs. After consuming all the energy, he made 3 more mechanical traps and matching arrows and steel balls, and then his consciousness left the space and returned to the outside. With War Wolf standing guard for him, Jiujiu did not need to make those defensive devices. He took out the sleeping bag and tent and slept peacefully. Next day, Jiujiu got up in high spirits, made breakfast for himself, replenished the energy for War Wolf, and continued to take War Wolf on the road. After walking out of the woods, the environment in front of them was that there were very few houses in the suburbs, and there were not many zombies around. Adhering to the principle of not letting go of any zombies they saw, Jiujiu and Zhang Lang cooperated with each other to kill all the zombies they met on the road. After walking for another hour, a white villa appeared in front of them, standing alone in a meadow, very eye-catching. What made Jiujiu strange was that this white villa that looked very eye-catching, why did it look so familiar? While Jiujiu was thinking about it, he saw a girl coming out of the window on the wall of the villa. 009 Blonde Beauty Beth Green. The reason why it was a girl was because she was dressed like a girl, with a beige top and slightly tight jeans, and her golden hair tied into a ponytail, which looked simple and neat. When Jiujiu was thinking about whether to save the girl had already run towards Lu Meng. When he ran in, Jiujiu recognized the girl at a glance. It was Beth, the youngest daughter of the main supporting character Herschel in the play. At this time, she was in a mess, and there was panic on her pretty face. Although there were no zombies around, she was still scared. As soon as he saw her, Jiujiu recalled the plot related to this scene. After escaping from the prison, Beth was rescued by Daryl in the wild and came all the way to this villa. The villa was relatively clean. After the two had a full meal, they were still surrounded by zombies. The two tried their best to kill the zombies, but there were too many of them. For Beth's safety, Daryl let Beth escape first. Therefore, soon after Beth escaped, she was besieged by zombies and fell unconscious. She was rescued by a group of police officers and captured in the city's safe zone. Finally, she was killed by the female police leader by mistake. While Jiujiu was thinking about it, the system suddenly sounded. Congratulations to the host for triggering the task. 1. Rescue Beth. Complete the reward experience 100. After receiving the system prompt, Jiujiu couldn't help but feel excited, thinking. Finally, the real-world task is triggered. There is nothing to say, just do it. At this time, Beth, who had escaped outside the villa, was discovered by the zombies in the woods, and they surrounded her with howls. Beth was frightened by this scene. Fortunately, she was no longer the cowardly girl who wanted to commit suicide on the farm. She was a qualified warrior. Faced with the siege of zombies, Beth waved the dagger in her hand and tried her best to stab the zombies that surrounded her. The target person of the task cannot die. Jiujiu thought so and did so. Immediately order the wolf warrior to rush up and rescue Beth, and don't let Beth die here. XT moment, the wolf warrior who received the order rushed forward, so fast that even Jiujiu, who was now up to 14 meters per second, couldn't keep up. At this time, Beth, who was exhausted by the zombies, saw herself falling to the ground due to exhaustion. XT moment, she was about to be pounced on by the zombies and bitten. Beth, who was desperate to die, could only close her eyes and wait for death. After waiting for a long time, she didn't feel the pain of being bitten on her body. When she opened her eyes, she saw a huge dog-like creature biting the zombies, and there were several dead zombies lying around her. Beth's mood was very complicated, and no description could describe her mood at this time. This strange creature is huge and has terrible combat ability. A closer look shows that it is made entirely of metal. Didn't you see that the dog-like creature reflects the luster of metal from time to time? Just when she was in a daze, there was a sound of arrows whizzing through the air behind her. This sound was too familiar. You know, her partner Daryl, doesn't he use a crossbow? XT moment, Beth was filled with surprise. She thought Daryl had also escaped and saved her again. She couldn't help but look back and saw an Asian boy who was about the same age as him, who was neat and well-equipped. Yes, Jiujiu is only 16 years old. Although he is tall and handsome, he can't get rid of the fact that he is a teenager. As soon as Beth saw Jiujiu's appearance, she became alert and had a little affection for Jiujiu. After all, compared to Daryl, who is already over 30 years old, Jiujiu is more suitable for her, isn't he? Don't be surprised by the strange brain circuits of American girls. Although they are in a life-and-death battle, their weird brain circuits make people speechless, that is, they will have an inexplicable affection for the opposite sex who stepped forward to save them. Isn't Daryl in the play a living example? Didn't Beth have a good impression of Daryl, who is more than 10 years older than her? What's more, Jiujiu looks handsome and has a clean face, so it is understandable that Beth has a good impression of him. The battle did not last too long. After all, with only these 20 zombies, let alone the help of Wolf Warrior, even if Jiujiu wanted to kill all these zombies alone, it would not take much time. What the two did not know was that just a few hundred meters away from the two, there were two policemen in police uniforms, holding binoculars to observe their performance. Maybe if Jiujiu hadn't appeared here, Beth would have been rescued by the police who found her and taken back to the city as in the original play. But with Jiujiu's intrusion, the two policemen dared not rush in. After all, not to mention Jiujiu's accurate archery, even the more magical and powerful dog-like creature was not what the two wanted to provoke. Compared to the mission of searching for survivors, safety is the most important thing, isn't it? They dared not bring a dangerous person like Jiujiu back to the city to become an unstable factor that threatens everyone. XT moment, the two got back into the car, started the car and left here. The sound of the car engine was naturally noticed by Jiujiu. Turning around to see the car leaving and the eye-catching white cross on the rear windshield of the car, Jiujiu raised his hand and touched his chin thoughtfully. XT moment, Beth stood up with a bit of resentment and said to Jiujiu. Hello. I'm Beth, Beth Green. You can call me Beth, thank you for saving me. Can you please help me save my companions? Obviously, she was a little dissatisfied with Jiujiu's ungentlemanly behavior. At this time, as a man, shouldn't he reach out and pull up the beautiful woman who fell to the ground? What a strange boy. Beth thought so. After hearing this, Jiujiu, who came back to his senses, reacted and took a closer look at Beth. Well, she is really beautiful. Although her little face is a little dirty, it is still difficult to hide her pretty face. Estimated height is more than 160, small and cute, and the conscience is not too big or too small, which is very suitable for one hand. Jiujiu couldn't help but have a little different thought in his heart. Fortunately, there was no evil in Jiujiu's eyes when he looked at Beth. Some were completely appreciation of beauty. Beth didn't feel the slightest bit of disgust, and even felt a little indescribable joy. After Jiujiu came to his senses, he generously extended his hand and said, Hello Beth, I'm a Chinese American, my name is Jiujiu, you can call me Jiujiu or Yi. Hearing this, Beth was stunned for a moment. She couldn't understand why Jiujiu only had a Chinese name, but no English name. Although it was strange, she still generously extended her hand and shook hands with Jiujiu, and said in a very strange voice. Hello, Uncle. Thank you again for saving me. Can you please help me rescue my companions? 010 Trigger Mission 2 Escort. Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't be too beautiful. Being called uncle by a little girl is a very pleasant thing for him, let alone a little blonde. This made Jiujiu feel even more happy. The little beauty's request will naturally be fulfilled. This is not because Jiujiu was deceived by beauty, but Daryl was a plot character that Jiujiu admired in the original drama. It is naturally a good thing to save him, right? What's more, maybe after saving Daryl, what tasks will be triggered in the future? I don't know for sure. XT moment, the system sounded. Congratulations to the host, completed the mission. 1. Rescue Beth. Degree, earned 100 experience points. XT phase of the mission is triggered. Mission 2. Escort Beth to the rescue station to meet the team. Completion will reward 500 experience points. While Jiujiu was checking the system messages, Beth thought that Jiujiu was unwilling to help her, and said very disappointedly, "What's wrong, uncle? Aren't you willing to help me?" Hearing this, Jiujiu understood that Beth had misunderstood him, raised his head and said, "No. I'm very willing to help you, Beth. Let's set off now." After saying that, Jiujiu touched the head of the war wolf who had been guarding him. In fact, he was replenishing the energy of the war wolf before he said, "War wolf, let's go. Look for the living." As soon as the sound fell, Wolf Warrior let out a low woo and moved his limbs to rush towards the villa. Seeing Wolf Warrior fighting again, Beth was really curious about what was going on with the metal dog, so she followed Jiujiu's footsteps and asked, "I would like to ask, Uncle, is this metal dog of yours called Wolf Warrior? Also, is it your mechanical pet?" Hearing this, Jiujiu replied while replacing the steel ball magazine for the mechanical crossbow. "Yes, it's called Wolf Warrior, and it's my pet. As you said, it is a complete mechanical creation, so don't underestimate it. I believe you have seen its combat effectiveness and intelligence, right?" Hearing this, Beth couldn't help but admire Jiujiu. Although the concepts of robots and robot dogs had long been proposed and even started to be manufactured, they were completely incomparable to Jiujiu's Wolf Warriors. At this moment, Beth became more and more fond of Jiujiu because she was rescued by Jiujiu and was surprised by Jiujiu's Wolf Warrior. Before the two returned to the villa, they saw the walking corpses killed by the Wolf Warriors all over the ground. The door had also been knocked open by the huge force of the Wolf Warriors. Jiujiu picked up the mechanical crossbow and looked at Beth without looking back. Said, "Beth, be careful and follow me. I'm leaving my back to you, but you have to protect me." Hearing this, Beth couldn't help but feel a sweet feeling in her heart. She was self-aware. In her opinion, Jiujiu's fighting ability was completely unmatched by anyone in the team, and even far exceeded them. When Jiujiu said this, he obviously believed in himself and was protecting himself at the same time. It's strange that she wasn't sweet. There had obviously been a battle in the villa. There were walking corpses everywhere. Some were shot to death by crossbows, some were stabbed to death with daggers, and most of them were killed by wolves. The two of them had almost no chance to fight the zombies. The dozens of zombies in the villa were all killed by the Wolf Warriors. When War Wolf returned to his side, what surprised Jiujiu was that there was no trace of Daryl. This makes Jiujiu very strange. He clearly remembers that in the play, Daryl finally escaped from the villa from the zombies, and saw the cross car leaving. After knowing that Beth was captured, there was Daryl behind. What happened with Carol following the car? Why is Daryl not here anymore? Jiujiu couldn't figure it out, so he temporarily abandoned this idea and attributed everything to his own intrusion and changed the plot. Wouldn't it be enough? Why bother so much? What's more, wouldn't it be a good thing to have the opportunity to be alone with the little beauty? Thinking of this, Jiujiu turned around and looked at Beth, who was also panicked, and said, "Look, it's not that I don't want to save your companion, I just didn't see him. However, you can rest assured that you didn't see his body after all, right? Maybe he has escaped behind you. Not necessarily. This is indeed the case." After Beth escaped, Daryl fought with the zombies and escaped from the other side of the window. He wanted to find Beth, but the zombies chased behind him. There were so many that he had to lure the zombies away first, and then find a way to come back to find Beth. The two escaped in completely opposite directions, so naturally they missed the opportunity for the three of them to meet. Hearing Jiujiu's words, Beth was relieved, and at the same time, she felt a little happy in her heart. She was glad that she could be alone with Jiujiu. Beth, who was secretly happy, raised her head and looked at Jiujiu and said, "Okay. I also believe that Daryl can escape. So, what are we going to do, Uncle?" Hearing this, Jiujiu naturally knew where he was going, and naturally wanted to go to the rescue station to meet Rick and others, first to complete the system tasks, and secondly to see if he could continue to trigger other tasks. Shrugging his shoulders, Jiujiu said casually, "Of course, let's eat first. I think you are hungry after the battle. Let's eat something first." After saying that, without waiting for Beth's reaction, he took Beth's hand and walked out of the villa. Even if Jiujiu wanted to cook, he would not do it in a house full of zombies. What's more, the water, electricity and gas are all out now. Even if he finds a kitchen in the villa, he can't make a fire to cook. When Jiujiu took her hand, Beth's little face suddenly blushed, but she didn't break away from Jiujiu, and let Jiujiu pull her out of the villa. With Werewolf leading the way, Jiujiu naturally didn't worry about being disturbed by the zombies along the way. He took Beth to find a clean place as a temporary foothold. Until then, Jiujiu let go of Beth's little hand, found stones and bricks on the spot, and quickly built a simple stove. He took off the backpack on his back and took out pots, pans, and other utensils from the backpack. It seemed that they were taken out of the backpack, but in fact they were all taken out of the space. Then, Beth was even more surprised to find that Jiujiu actually took out instant noodles, ham sausage, eggs and other ingredients and mineral water from his backpack, and the most rare thing was that there were fresh vegetables. Beth, who had not eaten vegetables for several days, couldn't help swallowing her saliva, and walked to the busy Jiujiu involuntarily, squatted down and watched Jiujiu curiously. Jiujiu was busy with concentration. In his opinion, making food was sacred, even if it was just a simple meal, it was sacred. Not long after, the exquisite small pot exuded an attractive fragrance, which made Beth, who had only eaten a little canned food and biscuits, swallow her saliva constantly, obviously also greedy for the delicious instant noodles. When the instant noodles were cooked, Jiujiu divided the noodles into 2 bowls, put the cut ham sausage into 2 bowls, and took out a pan to fry eggs. 011 Beth and #039, S and #039, Uncle and #039. After cutting the eggs, Jiujiu took them out of the pot and put them in 2 bowls. Jiujiu took out a fork for Beth and asked her to eat while it was hot. Then he picked up the bowl and ate with chopsticks. Beth took the fork and said, "Thank you," happily. Then he couldn't wait to pick up his bowl and eat with big mouthfuls. After finishing the meal, Beth burped with satisfaction, and then said embarrassedly, "I'm so sorry, Uncle. I haven't had such a delicious lunch for a long time, and I can't help but eat a little full." Hearing this, Jiujiu waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. I'm also very full, you don't have to be shy." After that, he took out 2 bottles of mineral water from his backpack, unscrewed the cap of one bottle and handed it to Beth, then he took the other bottle and unscrewed the cap and drank it with big mouthfuls. To be honest, Beth had lived in the apocalypse for more than a year, and had not drunk such clean water for a long time. She was reluctant to let go of the mineral water bottle and drank it in big gulps. Although she drank in big gulps, she obviously cherished the water resources very much, and not a drop spilled. On the other hand, Jiujiu was much more casual and wasteful. A lot of mineral water flowed out from the corners of his mouth, and flowed from the corners of his mouth and chin into his clothes, from Beth's perspective. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. The sunlight shone on Jiujiu's face, facing Beth, and inevitably produced visual deception. At this moment, Beth suddenly found that Jiujiu was so majestic and charming, which made her heart beat faster. Speaking of which, Beth was not a girl who didn't understand the relationship between men and women at all. She had a boyfriend long before the disaster broke out. Although there was no time for any actual relationship to happen, kissing, hugging, and caressing were also carried out. At this moment, she realized that she had developed inexplicable emotions towards Jiujiu, whom she had only been with for a few hours. She knew that it was love, an inexplicable love. Of course, all this was hidden in Beth's heart, and Jiujiu didn't see it. It was also because Jiujiu was careless, otherwise he could always see something from Beth's eyes. According to Beth's request, the two stayed here and continued to wait, hoping that Daryl would find this place. Unfortunately, after a desperate run, although Daryl killed the zombies following him, he inevitably couldn't find the way back to the villa. It was destined that he would never find Beth again. Although Daryl was very upset and regretful, he finally continued to move forward with self-blame. At 10 o'clock in the afternoon, Daryl walked to the railway, but fortunately saw the handwriting left by Maggie. Then, Daryl followed and fell behind Maggie, Glenn, and others. When night came, Jiujiu took out a tent from his backpack like a magic trick, and gave it to Beth without hesitation, asking her to rest in the tent while he rested by the fire. Beth was very moved. With the help of Jiujiu, she set up the tent and lay down in it. But she couldn't really fall asleep. She was not worried about any danger, such as the sudden appearance of zombies. She was not worried that Jiujiu would enter the tent and force herself while she was sleeping. Not to mention that Jiujiu was guarding outside, even War Wolf could kill all the zombies that attacked while she was sleeping. She was just grateful to Jiujiu in her heart, grateful that he saved her, grateful that he took care of her, and couldn't help but like Jiujiu in her heart. At this time, Jiujiu was not in the mood to observe Beth's reaction. He was taking this opportunity to enter the space with consciousness and seize the time to consume his full energy. Mechanical traps are powerful weapons. Although there are already 5, Jiujiu always feels that they are not enough. Without 100 or 80, he dare not offend the large-scale zombie tide. After making several mechanical traps, Jiujiu made a mechanical crossbow for Beth after careful consideration. It is also a mechanical crossbow that can fire continuously. The only difference from Jiujiu is that this mechanical crossbow can only fire steel ball projectiles. It is not that Jiujiu is stingy and does not make a powerful mechanical crossbow for Beth, but he does not believe in Beth's long-range shooting ability. The 150-meter shooting distance of the crossbow is not something that Beth, a girl, can perfectly control. With a mechanical crossbow that can fire 30 steel balls continuously, Jiujiu believes that Beth can fully adapt to it within 50 meters. At most, stay here for a few more days to train Beth's shooting ability. Compared with the mechanical crossbow used by Jiujiu, this special mechanical crossbow is much lighter and smaller. The total weight is only 6 pounds. With such a light weight, I believe Beth can adapt quickly and will not become a burden to Jiujiu when encountering a large number of zombies. Jiujiu knows that at the rescue station, not to mention the many zombies, even the leader of the camp, Gray, and his men are not easy to deal with. For more than an hour, Beth couldn't fall asleep at all. When she looked at Jiujiu again, she saw Jiujiu who had just finished working in the space. Because he was a little tired after sitting for a long time, he stretched his waist in front of the fire. XT moment, Beth blamed herself for being too reserved. What time is it? Why bother about so many gender distinctions? Jiujiu, who saved her, was left sitting alone in front of the fire without a rest. What's more, she also secretly liked Jiujiu. Even though she had only known him for 10 hours, she couldn't help but like him. Thinking of this, Beth naturally thought of her sister and Glenn. The two sisters had talked about it in private. She also knew that Glenn and her sister had only known each other for a few days and had sex in the pharmacy in the small town. Thinking that Glenn was also Asian, and so was Jiujiu, then it was no big deal. If her sister could be with Glenn, an Asian man, she could certainly be with Jiujiu, an Asian. Thinking of being together, Beth couldn't help but feel shy and secretly happy, and then she thought of the interesting things about Chinese boys that she talked about with her bestie at school. From Jiujiu's care for her, Beth guessed that Jiujiu also liked her, otherwise why would he treat her so well? He helped me go back to find Daryl, cooked for me, and let me sleep in the only tent. If he didn't like me, what else could he do? Then this Chinese boy must be like most Chinese boys. Even if he likes a girl, he will not take the initiative to show his love and pursue a girl. 012 Beth and hashtag 039, gift, continuous steel ball mechanical crossbow. To sum it up, Chinese boys are generally introverted and shy, but they are particularly good to their girlfriends. Thinking of this, Beth recalled the scene of Jiujiu killing the walking corpse. At this moment, Jiujiu's figure kept flashing back and magnifying in her mind, until it temporarily occupied her entire brain. Beth ignored it and boldly said to Jiujiu, "Uncle, you can sleep in the tent." As soon as Jiujiu woke up from the space, he heard Beth's words. He was stunned and asked involuntarily, "As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. What? What did you say?" After saying this, Beth became bolder and continued without waiting for Jiujiu to ask further questions. "The outside world is very dangerous. If you don't get a good rest, you will encounter danger. I don't want you to have a bad rest because you gave the tent to me. If any danger occurs xt day, you should still enter the tent. Come and sleep here. After all, your tent is spacious enough for 2 people to rest in." Hearing this, Jiujiu, who was stunned, finally came to his senses and said in his heart, "This little beauty invites me to sleep in the tent. For such a good thing, why should Jiujiu hesitate?" So, Jiujiu turned back to look at Beth and confirmed, "Are you sure, Beth?" When Beth heard this, even though she was bold, she was depressed by Jiujiu's question. She snorted and said, "Humph. Are you going to come in or not? If you don't come in, I will really fall asleep." Hearing this, Jiujiu could no longer be reserved. He immediately agreed and said okay, stood up and walked into the tent. Beth naturally heard Jiujiu enter the tent, but out of shame, she turned her back to Jiujiu, but in her heart she was expecting Jiujiu to do something. Jiujiu is a person who has a lustful heart but not a boldness. Seeing that Beth's back was turned to him, he lay down on the position Beth gave up, stretched out comfortably, and then closed his eyes and fell asleep. It's a pity that there is a little beauty to him. Although there is no body fragrance coming out because he hasn't showered for a long time, it always makes his heart as a man involuntarily agitated. In this way, neither of them could sleep for more than 10 minutes, and Beth's restless heart gradually calmed down. Although her heart calmed down, her love for Jiujiu became more and more intense, and Beth knew that her guess was right. Chinese boys like Jiujiu were just what she thought. Even when they were with girls they liked, they were reserved and would not take the initiative to violate girls. Thinking of this, Beth suddenly said. Seeing Beth turning around to look at him, Jiujiu's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, even faster than when he first shot the walking corpse. Seeing Beth's pretty little face so close, Jiujiu couldn't help but reached out and touched Beth's face gently, nodded firmly, and said, "As long as you are with me and don't leave my side, I will do my best to protect you and love you." Seeing the firmness and determination in Jiujiu's eyes, Beth was very moved. Speaking of which, since the disaster broke out, even with her father Hao Shell and sister Maggie protecting her, she has never had any reliable sense of security. Even if he later fell in love with a boy who came to prison, or even if he got along with Daryl later, he didn't feel that secure. At this moment, Jiujiu gave her a sense of security. At this moment, Beth's heart was moved to the point of confusion. Unable to help herself, Beth moved her body, brought her head up and said, "Then what are you waiting for? Love me." After getting dressed, Jiujiu walked out of the tent and continued busy making a fire to cook. After Jiujiu left, Beth woke up. When she heard Jiujiu's busy voice outside the tent, Beth felt extremely satisfied and loving. When Beth got up and had breakfast, Jiujiu took out the mechanical crossbow made for Beth, looked at Beth and said, "Come on, dear. This is the crossbow I prepared for you that can fire steel ball projectiles continuously. I'm here to teach you how to use this big killer weapon against the walking dead." Hearing this, Beth also became curious. She knew that Jiujiu had a crossbow in his hand, which could also continuously fire steel ball projectiles and crossbow arrows. But if you take a closer look, you can see that it looks similar to the crossbow from yesterday, but is obviously different in size. Curiously, he stepped forward and took the crossbow from Jiujiu. Jiujiu taught Beth step by step how to change the magazine and how to string the crossbow. In fact, it's very simple to put it bluntly. Don't think that Beth can't use guns. After more than a year of wandering, she has already learned how to use guns. Although this crossbow is a cold weapon, it is not much different from a rifle. The only difference is that one is driven by gunpowder kinetic energy and the other is mechanically driven. As for the accuracy of shooting, to be honest, Jiujiu didn't need to worry about it. After all, Beth's shooting skills were hard to say from a distance, but within 50 meters it was still good. After some familiarity with the operation, Beth selected a target 50 meters away and started practicing shooting with the mechanical crossbow. Jiujiu prepared 5 magazines for Beth. After watching her finish shooting one magazine and replace it, he loaded her magazine. Although it is a more powerful projectile, its power is equivalent to that of a pistol under the support of the system. Within 50 meters, if the steel ball hits bricks and stones, it will break the weak bricks, and if it hits a tree, it will be deeply embedded in the tree trunk. 013 outside the rescue station. Beth likes the gift her lover Jiujiu gave her very much. This weapon can fire continuously with power that is not inferior to a pistol, and the key is that the sound is extremely small. Beth practiced very hard. Compared with the small size of the pistol, the mechanical crossbow is still quite laborious to use. In order to bring out the power of this weapon, Beth spent 2 days firing steel ball bullets of almost 50 magazines before finally using the mechanical crossbow skillfully. Until then, no one saw Daryl or other survivors in the prison find this place, so Jiujiu and Beth had to continue their wandering journey. However, for Beth, it was wandering, but for Jiujiu, it was a clear goal. Find the railroad tracks and follow the handwriting left by Maggie to find the rescue station to complete Task 2. Google search TWKAN. In 3 days, Jiujiu created 9 more mechanical traps. At present, there are 14 mechanical traps stored in the space, which also gave Jiujiu the confidence to fight against thousands of zombies alone in the future. After walking for more than an hour, the two finally walked onto the railroad tracks. After walking for another half an hour, they found a message written by Maggie in the blood of zombies. When Beth saw Maggie's message, she immediately shouted with joy. On the farm, she lost her mother and brother, and in the prison base, she lost her father Herschel. Because of the chaos at the time, her sister Maggie didn't know the safety of her sister and Glenn. At this moment, seeing her sister's message and meeting someone she really liked, how could Beth not be happy? With her arms around Jiujiu, Beth jumped with joy, and kept cheering. "Oh, dear uncle, did you see it? My sister is still alive, my relatives are still alive. Did you see it?" Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but recall that when Beth did that with her, she also shouted, "Uncle," at the top of her lungs. Hearing this word at this time, Jiujiu suddenly felt a surge of blood in his body, and he almost couldn't control himself and fought with Beth on the spot. But then, Jiujiu had to extinguish the dirty thoughts in his heart, because Beth had already shed tears of joy. It must be said that at any time, a man with a healthy mind can't stand his woman crying in front of him, and Jiujiu is even more so. Jiujiu, who regained his composure, immediately reached out and took the crying Beth into his arms, hugged her tightly and gently patted her back with his hands, and comforted her softly. "Beth, don't cry, isn't it a good thing that your sister is still alive? Why are you crying? Besides, I am your boyfriend now, and I should meet our sister, right?" Hearing this, Beth rubbed in Jiujiu's arms for a few times, wiped all the tears from the corners of her eyes on Jiujiu's clothes, and then raised her head and looked at Jiujiu affectionately and said, "Thank you for your comfort, dear uncle, it's great to meet you." After that, Beth stood on tiptoe, put her lips to the lips of Jiujiu who bowed his head, and gave a tongue kiss. At this moment, Jiujiu couldn't bear it anymore. The beautiful woman took the initiative to give a sweet kiss, and Jiujiu immediately responded enthusiastically. If this wasn't in the wilderness, Jiujiu would have wanted to have another one with Beth right now. It's no wonder that Jiujiu is so impulsive. It's because in his 2 lives, not to mention being with women, even holding hands and kissing, there is no other woman except his mother. What's more, she is a cute and beautiful blonde like Beth. The only regret is that Beth is not a tall and strong big foreign horse type, which makes Jiujiu a little disappointed. The two of them were affectionate for 10 minutes, until their lips were numb from kissing each other, they reluctantly separated, and finally walked forward along the railroad hand in hand. What the two didn't know was that just 10 minutes before they arrived, Carol and Tyrese, who was still a little girl, Judith, who was only a little over 1 year old, had just passed by here. These 3 were also the last group of teammates from the original prison base to go to the rescue station. Maggie, Glenn, Rick, Carl, Michonne, Daryl, Abraham, Eugene, Rosita, Sasha, Tara, and others who were still alive had already gone to the rescue station. If nothing unexpected happens, these people, except Carol and Tyrese, will be imprisoned by Grace, the cannibal leader of the rescue station. The speed of the two people is naturally much faster than Carol and the others, but because they delayed some time in the original place, the place where they finally met will be in front of the cabin outside the rescue station. Jiujiu and Beth did not worry about danger at all, because Werewolf was on guard and explored the way for them. They even talked while walking to relieve the irritation of the journey. While talking, Jiujiu was very eager to complete the third hidden task and get the modification drawings of the mount motorcycle. According to the use of the physical objects that should be manufactured according to the first two drawings, there is a bit of black technology in it. Not to mention the function of the mechanical crossbow firing continuously. Can this be manufactured by modern technology? Maybe in the Marvel Universe, Tony may still be able to manufacture it. Although the mechanical trap has not been used yet, Jiujiu believes that the power of the mechanical trap will definitely not disappoint him. Then, once the mount motorcycle transformed in the space according to the blueprint is transformed, Jiujiu believes that its function is not comparable to any vehicle in this world. There are many bus stops along the way, all of which have Maggie's handwriting, which makes Beth happy like a magpie and talk non-stop. Jiujiu is worried that Beth will become hoarse because of talking too much. It took more than 2 days to walk, and Maggie's handwriting has become the words for the prison survivors to gather at the rescue station. Obviously, Maggie has met Glenn and others who caught up with her, so she changed the message. This also further stimulated Beth's idea of hurrying up as soon as possible and reuniting with her family. Jiujiu had to let her temper and speed up the pace. Finally, when they were close to the rescue station, the two still caught up with Carol and Tyrese. Beth recognized the two people from a distance. It was because Tyrese's back was so easy to recognize, and Carol's long silver hair was also easy to recognize, so Beth recognized the two people just by seeing their backs. When she saw the two people in front of her, Beth couldn't help but cheer. "Oh, my God. Is it Carol and Tyrese? You are still alive, so great." Hearing the shouts behind them, Carol and Tyrese also turned back in surprise. First, she saw Beth with a happy face, full of energy and ruddy complexion, and then she saw Jiujiu who was fully armed, and the mighty and extremely technological metal dog beside Jiujiu, Werewolf. 014 Mission 3 triggered. Carol was overjoyed at first, and then became vigilant, but the vigilant eyes disappeared in a flash, replaced by a gentle expression, which made people feel like spring breeze at the first sight. Google search reading. But doesn't the rifle you are holding in your hand not match the appearance of your gentle mother? Card mother. Jiujiu vomited in his heart, but he knew that Carol did not trust him, and acting with her was just a way for her to let her enemies relax their vigilance and protect herself. Beth didn't care, and rushed up quickly. She grabbed Carol's neck and gave her a warm hug. She kept telling Carol everything about herself. Seeing two women, big and small, hugging each other and talking, Jiujiu and Tercy looked at each other and shrugged each other. Jiujiu took the lead in saying hello. "Hi, you're such a big guy. Your name is Tailsai, right? I heard Beth talking about you. My name is Jiujiu and I'm from China. You can call me Yi." Hearing this, Ty-Erxi showed an expression that was half a smile but not a smile on her honest black face, nodded to Jiujiu and said, "Hello, Yi. My name is Telsey." After saying that, Tercy shut up and lowered her head without speaking. Jiujiu naturally knew that the reason why Tailsai was like this was that he no longer had any hope in life. Ever since his girlfriend was burned to death in prison, he had been determined to die. If he hadn't remembered his sister Sasha, and Judith on the chest, he would have died outside. After waiting for a long time, I saw Carol holding Beth's hand and walking in front of Jiujiu. The expression on Carol's face at this time was truly gentle. "Hello, Yi. I'm Carol, I'm Beth's family. Thank you for saving Beth." Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged again and said, "Hello, Carol. Don't say thank you anymore. I think Beth has told you that she and I are boyfriend and girlfriend, and protecting her is exactly what I should do, isn't it?" Hearing this, Carol smiled again and looked at Jiujiu with an expression of appreciation in her eyes. But Beth said happily, "Uncle, Carol, can we chat later? Is there an aid station in front of us? Why don't we get there and see Maggie and Glenn? It's not too late to have a nice chat." Hearing this, Carol and Jiujiu looked at each other with helpless expressions, but they both looked at the happy Beth fondly and nodded in agreement. Then, Beth and Carol walked in front, while Jiujiu and Tailsai fell behind and continued to move forward. Of course, Werewolf has already come to the front to explore the way for Jiujiu and the others. While walking, Jiujiu glanced at the lifeless Telsey and finally couldn't help but said, "Telsey, you said that if a person survives in this fucking apocalypse, wouldn't it be a good thing if he has a relative to care about?" After finishing speaking, without waiting for Tailsai's reply, he said to himself, "Each of us has lost a lot in this world, including relatives, friends, and even lovers. But not everything is lost. We still have friends and relatives, and we must live well for them. After all, compared to those who have become zombies, we are lucky, aren't we? Telsey, for the sake of your sister, I think you should live well so that your sister will not live alone." After saying that, Jiujiu kept silent. He understood the meaning of exchanging shallow words and deep words. Some words didn't need to be said too much. Once Tails figured it out, it would be fine. What he has to consider now is how to complete Mission 3 and kill the cannibal Leader Grey and his accomplices, Leader Grey, 0/1, and accomplices, 0/61. Completing the mission will reward you with 1,000 experience points. Yes, when Beth and Carol met, his task 2, escorting Beth to the rescue station to meet the team, had already been completed and triggered the subsequent task 3. The 500 experience points gained from completing the mission allowed Jiujiu's level to be raised 1 level again, becoming what it is now. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, mechanical hunter. Level 5, 200/600. Property. Strength, 5. Physical strength, 5. Intelligence, 7. Spirit, 7. Agility, 7. Speed, 15 meters/second. Energy, 700, 7 points/minute recovery speed. Professional talents and skills. 1. Junior Combat Master. 2. Junior Mechanical Manufacturing Master. Pet, Mechanical Dog Wolf Warrior. Mount, none. Special space, 100 square meters of machinery manufacturing space, 14 mechanical traps. Drawings, none. Note, there are 0 times left for the time travel function. Note, the only mainline Super God level mission, kill Thanos and his henchmen. Successful missions reward 6 cosmic gems. Let's talk about Mission 3. In fact, it is not very difficult to complete it. The most dangerous thing is that there are a lot of rifles in their team. Those can shoot at targets hundreds of meters away. Compared with the 150-meter range of Jiujiu's mechanical crossbow, it has an inherent advantage. How to kill these dehumanized demons while ensuring his own safety was what Jiujiu was thinking about. The words of Jiujiu and Tailsai were naturally heard by Carol and Beth, who were walking in front. Of the two, Beth was extremely happy, thinking that her lover was very good. After listening to what happened in prison, she saw that Tyrese was not in a good mood, so she comforted him. Carol had a different feeling. After all, she was the one who killed Tyrese's girlfriend, but she really didn't want to see Tyrese become numb like this, and naturally hoped that what Jiujiu said would work. At this time, Tyrese's heart was fluctuating. Sometimes he thought of his dead girlfriend, and sometimes he thought of his sister Sasha. The figures of the two kept interweaving in his mind, and finally gathered together. He saw that both of them smiled at him. The werewolf who was exploring the way ahead suddenly stopped and made an attacking gesture, which immediately stopped the 4 of them. They were all experienced warriors. Except for Tyrese, who was a little indifferent, Jiujiu, Carol and Beth all made alert movements. Jiujiu came forward and said to Carol and Beth, "Something seems to be wrong. You know, werewolf has high intelligence and perception. He can sense the danger around him. Let's be careful." After that, Jiujiu continued to say to Beth and the others, "I'll go out with werewolf first. You follow me. I'll go see if there's any danger ahead." After that, Jiujiu and werewolf lowered their footsteps and quietly moved towards the vaguely visible cabin in front. In front of the cabin was the cannibal who was responsible for attracting zombies. He was squatting on the ground, talking to the person on the intercom, and fiddling with some fireworks. Seeing that he was not alert to the surroundings, Jiujiu simply asked Wolf to attack this person, but not to kill him immediately, but to knock him unconscious. 015 Infiltration Assassination. XT moment, Wolf Warrior rushed out and knocked the man unconscious before he could react. Diamond suit, diamond suit. Before knocking him unconscious, he happened to hear him mention the words, knife girl, bitch, etc. Jiujiu then came out, tied up his hands and feet with ropes, blocked his mouth with rags, and then carried his body into the wooden house. Behind him, seeing Jiujiu's response, Carol agreed with him in her heart. Beth didn't care, she just felt that whatever her lover did was right. Tyrese's eyes were a little unhappy. After all, it was a bit too much to treat a stranger like this. After everyone entered the wooden house, when they were about to start interrogating this man, they heard, killed 8 people, from the intercom. After waking up the man, Jiujiu squatted in front of him, looked at him and asked in a deep voice. Are you from the rescue station? Why are you here? Why do you want to kill people? The man stretched his neck hard and made a woohoo sound, signaling Jiujiu to take off the rag blocking his mouth. Jiujiu pulled out the rag from his mouth and waited for the man to justify himself. Sure enough, the man immediately explained. Hello, I am from the rescue station in front. You are here to seek refuge in the rescue station. Let me go, I will take you back immediately. Jiujiu naturally knew that this was a delaying tactic, the purpose was to trick them into the rescue station and then deal with them. He curled his lips and said disdainfully. Tell me, what's the matter with the knife girl? What's the matter with killing 8 people? Hearing this, the man's face froze, and he became hesitant to speak, and he couldn't explain what was going on for a long time. Seeing this, Jiujiu turned back to look at Carol and Beth and said. It seems that this so-called rescue station has a lot of problems. They are not an organization that rescues the living. It is very likely that they are specialized in killing people. For such people, my principle has always been direct, that is, kill him. So as not to continue to harm the living. Kill him. As soon as he said it, Jiujiu pulled out the dog-leg knife on the side of the big push and cut his neck with a swish. This scene immediately shocked Beth and the other 2. Beth did not expect Jiujiu to kill so cleanly. In Carol's eyes, there was an indescribable admiration for Jiujiu's decisive killing. Tyrese was incredulous. He could never have imagined that Jiujiu would be so cruel and kill people without any hesitation. Jiujiu looked at the man lying on the ground, and calmly stabbed him in the head, and continued to say. In the end times, there are not many living people, and it is not easy to live. But these people still talk about killing people as if they were killing pigs. I think these people don't deserve to continue living. After that, he stood up, turned around and looked at Carol and Beth and said. Beth, I think your sister and Glenn have been controlled by them, but don't worry, I will rescue them. You, Tyrese, Carol and others just need to wait here. Hearing Jiujiu's words, Beth immediately became worried. Although she was also worried about the safety of her sister and Helen, she was more worried about Jiujiu's safety. Carol admired Jiujiu more and more, and saw the worry in Beth's eyes, so she stood up and said. Yi is right, so let's do this. Yi and I will rescue everyone together. Beth, you and Tyrese just need to wait here. Remember, as long as they are not our people, kill them and don't hold back. Remember that there is Judith who needs your care. After that, Carol and Jiujiu looked at each other and walked out of the wooden house, picked up the fireworks on the ground and walked towards the rescue station in front. At this time, in the slaughterhouse of the rescue station, Rick, Bob, Daryl, Glenn and 3 others were tied with their hands, kneeling in front of a large iron trough, waiting to be cut and dismembered. Jiujiu and Carol had already climbed a small hill outside the rescue station. Looking at the rescue station surrounded by barbed wire below, Jiujiu put down the telescope and said. Carol, this place is indeed abnormal. Since it is a rescue station, there should be a lot of people here. But look, there are only a few dozen people here. So, where did all those people who went to the rescue station go? Combined with the words on the intercom just now, I guess those people were killed by these people. Or something worse. What do you think? Hearing this, Carol nodded in agreement. Thinking of people as a little worse is her advantage, otherwise she would not have killed Tyrese's girlfriend and another person who were infected with the disease. Then, from the telescope, I saw that many zombies gathered outside the barbed wire one after another, and several women with weapons were killing these zombies behind the barbed wire. Finally, Jiujiu saw a place where there were fewer zombies, and decided to enter the rescue station from there and kill those cannibal demons one by one. So, Jiujiu pointed at that place and said to Carol, "Well, Carol, you are responsible for meeting us here. I will sneak in, kill those people and rescue Beth's sister and your family." After that, Jiujiu and Werewolf slid down the hillside carefully. Carol saw that Jiujiu went to rescue alone, and she couldn't help but worry about Jiujiu, but she also placed her hopes on Jiujiu. Although she had thought of a way to break into the rescue station, her method was extremely dangerous. She didn't want to do it unless it was absolutely necessary. In the telescope, Jiujiu and Zhanlang moved very carefully, killing many zombies along the way without alarming too many zombies, and sneaked into the outside of the barbed wire. Without any tools such as wire cutters, Zhanlang's tail was bent over, and he just used the sharp tip of the sword at the end of the tail to easily cut the barbed wire, revealing a hole that was large enough for Jiujiu and Zhanlang to pass through. Without caring whether leaving a hole would let zombies in, Jiujiu and Zhanlang carefully moved towards the rescue station. When they met patrolmen on the road, Jiujiu and Zhanlang would cooperate with each other, either attacking from the front and back or attracting the enemy's attention and killing the enemy, and quickly and quietly solved no less than 10 armed personnel. After killing these people, Jiujiu was not afraid of exposing his ability, and put all their weapons into the space. Naturally, the first place Jiujiu went to was the slaughterhouse. Whether he could rescue Rick and the others in time was another matter. If he could, everyone would be happy. If he couldn't, it didn't matter. Jiujiu was not a saint. The mission was just to kill the cannibal demons, but there was no rule that they had to be rescued. He was sneaking around and killing people. What Carol saw through the telescope was 016 Mechanical Trap Debut. Jiujiu was like an experienced hunter, silently killing the enemy, which made Carol value and admire Jiujiu even more. She also thought that such an action, if it were her or someone else in the team, it would never be possible for Jiujiu to be as silent as he was. It also gave her a lot of confidence in Jiujiu to save everyone. Search TWKAN on Google. Maybe Jiujiu was lucky, and Rick and the other 4 were lucky enough. After the 3 people in front of them had their throats cut and bled, it was Glenn's turn. Jiujiu suddenly broke in and saw the men holding a baseball bat. Just when he was about to swing the bat to hit Glenn on the back of the head, Jiujiu pointed the mechanical crossbow at his head and pulled the trigger. XT moment, an arrow shot out with a whoosh sound, and penetrated deeply into his head with a pop sound, causing him to immediately fall to the ground on his back. Wolf Warrior was unequivocal and immediately pounced out, his silver metal body reflecting the dazzling light, and he quickly pounced on the men holding the knife. The third man here is the cannibal leader, Grace. Seeing Jiujiu break in, he kills without hesitation. Gray reacted quickly and pulled out his pistol and shot Jiujiu. Unfortunately, Jiujiu's current agility is as high as 7 points, and the distance of tens of meters is enough for him to dodge. Gray was surprised to find that no matter how he shot, he could not hit Jiujiu, who was dodging left and right. On the other side, the man holding the knife had been thrown to the ground by Werewolf, and his head was bitten off. At this moment, Gray was immediately afraid. How could he dare to stay here anymore? He immediately fired at Jiujiu continuously, but he quickly retreated towards the small door on one side. After the Wolf Warrior killed the knife-wielding men, when he was about to continue attacking Grace, Gray had already retreated behind the small door and closed the heavy iron door. Werewolf bumped into the iron door, making a dull duong sound, and was then knocked to the ground by the iron door's repulsive force. Seeing that the wolf was about to hit the iron door, Jiujiu stopped its movement, walked behind the 4 Glens, and asked Glenn while untying the rope. "Who among you is Glenn?" "I am Jiujiu, Beth's boyfriend. She asked me to save her family." Jiujiu deliberately untied Glenn's rope first. As soon as he untied the rope and heard Jiujiu's words, Glenn pulled off the cloth from his mouth and said, "I am Glenn, and they are also Beth's family. These are Daryl, Rick, and Bob. And Beth's sister. They are still locked in the container. Let's rescue them now." After saying that, he first helped Jiujiu untie the ropes of several people. Jiujiu handed the Glock, which had never been used, to Rick, and gave him a 33-round magazine. Then he handed the shotgun on his back to Glenn, took off the bullet belt from his waist and stuffed it into Glenn's arms, and said, "Then what are you waiting for? Follow me and rush out to rescue Maggie and the others before those people." After saying that, he turned around and rushed out the door. Behind him, Zhang Lang also rushed in front of Jiujiu, taking on the role of vanguard. Behind them, to be honest, the four of them were still a little dazed. Just when the four of them were about to be killed, Jiujiu appeared like a god descending from the earth, killing the two executioners cleanly and scaring away the leader Gray. Not to mention Jiujiu's ability to dodge bullets. What about that big metal dog? Fortunately, Glenn was worried about Maggie, Rick was worried about Carl, Bob was worried about Sasha, and Daryl blamed himself. They didn't waste any time and hurriedly followed Jiujiu and rushed out of the door. At this time, Gray had already used the walkie-talkie to notify the people who were still alive that he would launch a siege on Jiujiu and others. From the feedback from the walkie-talkie, he knew that there were already a dozen fewer people in the base, which could not help but put a ferocious expression on Gray's handsome face. You must know that the few people who cannot be contacted are the real combat forces in the base. Although those women are also combatants, they are still a little bit uninteresting. Suddenly there were more than a dozen people missing, which made him so angry that he wanted to summon people immediately to kill Jiujiu and others who had ruined his good deeds. Of course, although Gray has a twisted mentality, he is still a smart man. Jiujiu is too powerful. He knows that it is obviously not possible to deal with such a person alone. He plans to gather everyone together and slowly surround and kill Jiujiu and others. Although Gray informed in time, several people were still far behind. They were discovered and killed by Jiujiu. Naturally, Jiujiu gave the guns to Glenn and other people with good marksmanship for use. For example, Maggie, Abraham, Rosita, Sasha, and a few others. The five of them fought their way back to the container where everyone was imprisoned, and rescued everyone. The guns were distributed one by one. Jiujiu asked them to form a team while he hunted these cannibal demons alone. It's not that Jiujiu doesn't trust them, but that Jiujiu plans to use a mechanical trap. To be honest, he hasn't used this thing before, and he doesn't even know what it will be like, so naturally he doesn't want Glenn and the others to know about it. Saying goodbye to everyone, Jiujiu and Zhang Lang used the cover of the container to sneak towards Gray and others. Finally, Gray and others were found near the weapons warehouse. At this time, outside the warehouse, Gray and the remaining dozens of people were gathered here, fully armed. Jiujiu looked at the surrounding terrain and had some concerns in his heart. It's easy to handle, including harassment, mechanical traps, sneak attacks, and defeating them one by one. Taking advantage of Gray's dark face while he was speaking, Jiujiu suddenly rushed out from the gap of the container and started shooting without saying a word. The crossbow arrows shot out 3 arrows in a row, hitting the back of the heads of the 3 people who were facing away from him. 2 of them were men and 1 was a woman. The sound of the crossbow arrows breaking through the air immediately startled Gray. Seeing the crossbow arrows shot into the back of the heads of 3 companions, Gray immediately screamed wildly and shouted, "That damn bastard is behind, kill him." After saying that, he raised his rifle and rushed towards Jiujiu. Seeing that he had killed 3 people, Jiujiu immediately retreated and placed the first mechanical trap in the gap between the containers. However, Werewolf hid himself and sneaked behind Gray and others according to the order given to him by Jiujiu to kill the lagging people. Gray was really lucky. He was the first to chase, but he fell in the middle inexplicably. When the first few people rushed to the gap between the containers, they triggered the mechanical trap. A magical scene happened. The triggered mechanical trap slammed into the air with a buzzing sound. Then, after a short mechanical sound, dense arrows and steel balls burst out in the surroundings. Fortunately, this was in the gap between the containers. The lethality of the arrows and steel balls was greatly reduced. Only the 5 people in front were shot into hedgehogs and honeycombs by arrows and steel balls. 017 completed mission 3. These 5 people died on the ground without even a groan, which made the people who followed them shudder and then became furious. Some people didn't even see Jiujiu's shadow and started shooting randomly. At this time, the werewolf also launched an attack, rushing out from behind the crowd, biting one person to death with 1 pounce, and then slapped one person to death with 2 claws, and then the tail rolled back and stabbed 3 people in succession. The remaining 20 people found the sneak attack of the war wolf. Seeing this strange metal dog killed 6 people in an instant, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. It was really terrible. What is this thing? It's much more terrible than those zombies. Fortunately, these people are all ruthless. Although they are afraid in their hearts, they still picked up their guns and shot at the war wolf. The war wolf is not a stupid dog. If it stays where it is and is shot, even if the bullet does not break the defense, it will be injured if it hits the joints. After killing 6 people, when everyone was shooting, it quickly retreated to hide behind the container. Jiujiu was also very cunning. After the wolf warrior attracted their attention, he also flashed out from behind the container and fired a burst of arrows with a mechanical crossbow. 5 arrows were shot out in succession, and 5 more people were shot down at once. Now Gray only had a dozen people left. So many people were killed by the front and back attacks. To be honest, Gray was afraid. He had never met such a powerful person. Even those who were occupied by those people, beaten, tortured, humiliated, and even killed them were just relying on their numbers. The real combat power was not much stronger, otherwise he would not have been killed by his own people. Today, he finally saw a person who was as powerful as the protagonist of the movie. He really couldn't do anything with Jiujiu. Fighting, dozens of people couldn't beat him, and now more than a dozen people are even less of an opponent. Escape, he didn't have the confidence to escape Jiujiu's pursuit. The person was powerful, but he really couldn't think of a way to deal with that big metal dog. Although, for a metal creature like the wolf warrior, the best way is to use explosives to blow its body apart. But one thing must be understood, the wolf warrior is not a dead thing, and its flexibility is obvious to everyone. There is no way, with enemies in front and behind, Grace can only divide his manpower into 2 parts to defend against the sneak attacks of Jiujiu and wolf warrior. His purpose is very clear: since I am not Jiujiu's opponent, I can always retreat. Retreat to the warehouse and defend from a high position. He doesn't believe it. No matter how powerful the metal dog is, it can still jump 7 or 8 meters high. As for the fear that the metal dog will break in, it will be enough to install a few bombs on the door. At worst, they will die together. In fact, his idea is correct. In order to complete the task, Jiujiu will naturally not let them go. He looked at the progress of the task completion, killing the leader Grace, 0/1, and his accomplices, 36/61. There is only one small boss and 15 minions left to complete the task, so there is no need to hesitate. Let War Wolf harass them first, and then the driver will kill them. He wanted to continue using the mechanical trap, but the timing was wrong. You know, the reason why the trap is called a trap is that it is unexpected. The other party obviously stopped chasing and had no chance to set the trap. XT moment, War Wolf jumped down from a container and killed one person, which attracted the firepower of the crowd. War Wolf also reacted quickly and dodged left and right in the open space, avoiding most of the bullets. Although a few bullets could not be avoided, the bullets hit the all-metal body, but only caused countless cremations. At this point, Jiujiu finally put his mind at ease. He originally thought that the defense of the metal parts synthesized by space smelting would not be too abnormal, but he didn't expect that it would be as abnormal as Tony's iron suit. What is there to hesitate about? Jiujiu immediately gave War Wolf an order through consciousness to try to avoid bullets and kill the enemy. XT moment, War Wolf did not jump back to dodge, but turned around and rushed towards Grace and others. Seeing that War Wolf attacked back in an uncharacteristic way, Grace and others were immediately frightened out of their wits. Those with slightly worse psychological quality had already screamed and pulled the trigger, shooting recklessly. Seeing that everyone's attention was attracted by War Wolf, Jiujiu also came out from behind. He was more than 20 meters away and had already replaced the steel ball bullets. He picked up the mechanical crossbow and started shooting continuously. At this moment, the precise shooting that had been trained for a long time to kill zombies played a powerful role. The sound of steel ball bullets breaking through the air sounded one after another. 5 people were shot and killed by Jiujiu one after another. Those who were unlucky were also hit in the back by bullets and fell to the ground and could not move. For this kind of man-eating guy, Jiujiu had no intention of holding back. Under the pincer attack of Jiujiu and War Wolf, Gray's man-eating gang fell to the ground and died one after another. In the end, only Gray was left, who was pounced on the ground by the wolf warrior and his limbs were pressed tightly to the ground and unable to move. Jiujiu walked up, half-crouched on the ground, looked at Gray with a pale face and said, "I sympathize with your experience at the beginning, but this is not an excuse for you to kill innocent people and even eat human flesh. Go to hell and repent." After saying that, Jiujiu took out the dog-leg knife and stabbed it into Gray's head, ending his sinful life. With Gray's death, the system sounded again. Congratulations to the host for completing Mission 3, killing the cannibal Leader Grace and his accomplices, Leader Grace, 1/1, Accomplice, 61/61. Completing the mission will reward 1,000 experience points. Tip: the host's level has been upgraded. The current level is level 6. 5 attribute points have been obtained, which have been automatically allocated to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. The experience has increased by 1,000, and the level has been upgraded again. Jiujiu has no interest in checking the panel information. Instead, he put all the guns and ammunition scattered on the ground into the space, and walked towards the warehouse of Gray and others. He saw from the show that there are many good things in Gray's warehouse. Not to mention the guns and ammunition, the key is that there are also many watches, gold and diamond jewelry, etc. These things can be brought back to his own world, but they can be exchanged for a lot of rice and gold. Jiujiu has a feeling that just collecting metals from other worlds may not meet his future mechanical manufacturing and modification requirements. And as far as he knows, the best metal is the metal in the Marvel world. I won't talk about adamantium, which is stored in S.H.I.E.L.D. and is hard to get. Vibranium is okay, but you have to buy it from Wakanda. Carbana, although not the hardest metal, has the characteristic of inhibiting the healing factor. Jiujiu thinks that having such a weapon may play a big role in other worlds. You are you metal, this thing is awesome and needs no explanation. It is unique to Asgard, so just think about it. 018 detonation. The easiest thing to get is vibranium, and Carbana can be synthesized as long as you find the right person. Google search reading. Thinking about his own things, Jiujiu put all the valuable items in the warehouse into the space. He left enough weapons and supplies for Rick and others to use. At this time, Rick and others were fighting with the zombies outside the barbed wire. Taiwan Novel Network. It was because the gunshots attracted more zombies to attack the barbed wire, and thousands of zombies surrounded them. Jiujiu waited for a long time but did not see Rick and others coming. When he heard the gunshots outside, he roughly understood what was going on. He did not wait any longer, put down the mechanical crossbow, replaced it with a rifle, and walked out quickly to the outside of the barbed wire. But the dense zombies surrounded the barbed wire, and Rick and others were shooting at the zombies to end them from pushing the barbed wire and swarming in. Seeing this, Jiujiu was just what he wanted. Once so many zombies were killed, Hidden Mission 3 might be completed, and then the mount he wanted most could be manufactured and modified. While walking forward to shoot, he said to Rick and others, "I have killed those people. There are many weapons in their warehouse. Before the zombies rush in, you go get the weapons first, and I will guard here." After hearing Jiujiu's words, everyone stopped shooting, and all looked back in shock at Jiujiu, who looked calm. Daryl was still eager to get his crossbow back, and hurriedly called everyone to run to the warehouse. After everyone left, Jiujiu shot and killed the zombies, while thinking in his mind how to kill 10,000 zombies. The best way is to use mechanical traps. As long as they are used well, they can still do it. Thinking of this, Jiujiu saw an oil tank outside the wire mesh, and thought of Carol in the play using fireworks to ignite the oil tank, which not only blew up the wire mesh, but also burned many zombies to death. Jiujiu had a plan in mind, and fire attack was also a good way. What he was most worried about was the zombies killed by Rick and others. He hoped that so many zombies were killed by himself. Having made up his mind, Jiujiu shot and retreated. When he retreated to a container 300 meters away, Jiujiu aimed at the oil tank. With a move of the muzzle. XD moment, the trigger was pulled, and the bullets shot out of the barrel. Several bullets made holes in the oil tank. The fuel quickly flowed to the ground, and then quickly spread to more than 10 meters around. Many zombies were within the range of the fuel. After waiting patiently for a while, the fuel flowed into the wire mesh and flowed onto the concrete floor. Jiujiu then aimed at the concrete floor soaked by the fuel and fired continuously. Finally, a bullet struck a spark on the ground, igniting the fuel on the ground. The fire spread rapidly with a whoosh and burned to the oil tank. Second, the oil tank exploded violently with a boom. A huge fireball swept out to the surrounding area of dozens of meters, engulfing hundreds of zombies in the flames. Coupled with the shock wave generated by the explosion, all the zombies around were swept into the air, and then torn into pieces. More zombies were ignited by the fuel, and they rushed towards the barbed wire with flames all over their bodies. The barbed wire was also pushed to a large area by the explosion. The zombies in front died, and the zombies behind stepped on the flames and entered the barbed wire. Jiujiu immediately flashed out from behind the container, set a trap on the ground, and used the cover of the container to start shooting the scattered zombies that had already entered. Jiujiu didn't want his trap to be triggered by a few zombies alone, otherwise it would be a waste of one of his traps. Soon, the first few zombies were shot dead, and more zombies surrounded them. The sound of gunfire was the biggest factor that attracted them. At this time, Rick and his team had just come out of the warehouse. Everyone was fully armed, with rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Even Michonne carried a samurai sword on her back and held a rifle in her hand. Everyone naturally heard the explosion outside. Moment, everyone's face changed, and they were all worried that the zombies had rushed in. They lined up in battle formations and rushed to the ES place. Almost 100 zombies had surrounded them, and the leading zombie triggered the trap. The trap hummed and shot into the air, and countless arrows and steel balls shot out in a radius of 20 meters around. In Jiujiu's eyes, at least hundreds of zombies were shot in the head, and they fell down in a row like cutting wheat. Jiujiu couldn't help but feel proud and amazed, secretly thinking that the power of this trap was really great. Werewolf was also killing zombies on the other side. Although his killing speed could not catch up with the trap, it was not slower than Jiujiu's shooting with bullets, and even slightly faster. After all, Werewolf was made of metal, and all the zombies had no interest in it, so there was no need to dodge. In just a moment, Jiujiu had killed as many as 500 zombies, and the task progress had reached 825/10,000. Taking advantage of the gap when the zombies were cleared, Jiujiu flashed out again, took back the empty trap, and placed a new trap on the ground. Continue to shoot zombies to attract more zombies. When Rick and the others arrived, they saw the corpses of zombies all over the ground. This scene shocked and speechless everyone. They never thought that someone would kill so many zombies alone. There were at least hundreds of corpses on the ground. They all had a common thought in their minds, that is, how did this he do it? Is he Rambo? Can he fight 1,000 people alone? There was no time to explain in detail. Jiujiu said loudly while shooting. There is a trap I set up in front of you. The killing range radius is 30 meters. Pay attention to finding a good cover to hide. When the zombies are almost killed, rush out to meet Beth, Carol, Tyrese, and Judith. Hearing Jiujiu's words, everyone was amazed at the power of the trap that Jiujiu mentioned, and then reacted and knew that Judith was still alive, and they were so happy that they almost jumped up. Especially Rick and Carl, they are Judith's relatives. Knowing that this little child is still alive, the two of them almost cried with joy. When the trap was launched into the air again and killed all the zombies within 20 meters, everyone realized how powerful and terrifying the trap Jiujiu was talking about was. When everyone saw that Werewolf, a metal dog, killed more zombies than all of them combined, they chose to remain silent. They had to remain silent because Jiujiu was too strong and too weird. Strictly speaking, neither Jiujiu's metal dog nor the powerful trap were anything they were familiar with. 019 exposing Eugene and hashtag 039, lies. They just felt that this Chinese named Yi was too mysterious. Diamond suit Google search reading. But Jiujiu was still a little dissatisfied. What he was dissatisfied with was that the triggering method of the trap was too simple. It would be great if you could be invisible and remotely controlled. Everyone joined the battle in silence, and a safe passage to the outside world was quickly cleared. At this time, Jiujiu had to stop his plan to stay here and kill the walking zombies. It was not because these people were too weak compared to him. If he was not careful, someone would be bitten or killed by the walking zombies. Don't forget, among these people are Beth's sister Maggie and brother-in-law Glenn. If anything happens to these two people, it's really hard for Beth to explain. In fact, the life and death of these people is really not important to Jiujiu. As long as it is not related to the mission, anyone can be abandoned, even if he is the protagonist of this world. However, Beth was her woman after all, even if it was only temporarily. Jiujiu can't be so ruthless and cruel. Isn't a good ending something that everyone likes to see? As for the fact that the task has not been completed yet, there is really no rush. After all, 10,000 walking corpses are not 10,000 ants. You can kill enough if you say you can. Besides, Wolf Warrior has been fighting continuously for almost an hour. If it is not recharged, it will die among the walking corpses. By then, even if Jiujiu has extraordinary abilities, he will not be able to escape from the walking corpses. Brought out the Wolf Warriors. Although the Wolf Warrior was lost, it could still be made, but people all have feelings. After all, it was his first mechanical pet, and Jiujiu still cared about the Wolf Warrior very much. Thinking of this, Jiujiu no longer hesitated, and immediately called the wolf to come back to him. First, he recharged the wolf, and second, he took Beth's family out of the base. After Jiujiu recharged the Wolf Warrior, everyone followed Jiujiu and fought their way out of the base to meet up with Beth and others. Unexpectedly, when these people met, the system beeped unexpectedly. Congratulations to the host, for completing the hidden mission in the plot and rescuing Rick and others. Gained 500 experience points. Tips: the host level has been improved. The current level is 7. Gained 5 attribute points, which have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the host for details. To be honest, Jiujiu was very happy when he heard the sound of the system. He was not only happy for completing the hidden task, but also happy to see Beth hugging Maggie, Glenn, Rick and others happily. Jiujiu also knew that he could not stay in this world for too long. After a year, he would leave this world whether he wanted to or not, so he could not bear to leave Beth alone in this world. It is better to help her keep as many relatives and friends as possible with her, so that she will not be too lonely after she leaves. After everyone finished greetings, Jiujiu interrupted everyone's hug and said, "Hey! Guys, should we leave here first, find a safe place, and let you feel better?" After hearing this, everyone's expressions froze. Although they all secretly criticized Jiujiu for being unreasonable, no one opposed him. After all, what Jiujiu said is true. Didn't you see that there are many walking corpses in the base below? This is really not a gentle place for everyone. As the leader of the team, Rick took the lead in reaching out to Jiujiu to express his gratitude. Then came Maggie. As a sister, he was naturally very grateful to Jiujiu for saving Beth's life and bringing Beth back to her. After that, everyone walked deeper into the forest while discussing their future plans. Listening to these people's pessimistic thoughts, Jiujiu was speechless. He wanted to tell these people that someone was already interested in them, and it was a very enjoyable place for them. Although Jiujiu didn't notice anyone peeping around, he knew that Aaron from Alexander Manor was watching them from a distance. Jiujiu has his own plan. After sending all these people safely to Alexander Manor, he will leave alone to kill the walking zombies to complete the mission, and also collect more medals and valuables so that he can make a big deal with Vakken when he returns. After walking for more than half an hour, I inevitably met the black priest, Gabriel, who was blocked by a walking corpse on a big rock. After everyone rescued him, they returned to Gabriel's church together. With Jiujiu's participation, no one cared about Gabriel's unusualness. There was no extra food for everyone to consume. They just rested here for a night and left the church. Gabriel, the priest, also joined the team after Jiujiu put in good words. On the way, Abilahan proposed that he would take everyone to Washington, but he was stopped by Jiujiu in public and said, "No, we won't go. There is no safe base or scientific research team in what you call Washington." After saying that, Jiujiu grabbed you out and said, "Okay, Mr. Liar. Can you tell them the truth? I don't want to send you thousands of miles to some bullshit Washington. If you don't tell the truth, I will kill you mercilessly. Do you understand, Mr. Eugene the Liar?" After saying that, Jiujiu had already pulled out the dog-leg knife on the side of his thigh and placed it on Eugene's neck. At this moment, Eugene had never felt that death was so close to him. He was scared, especially Jiujiu, a mysterious and inhumanly strong Chinese boy. But the combat power was terrifyingly strong, and coupled with Jiujiu's technologically advanced mechanical dog, he believed that no one present could be Jiujiu's opponent. Besides, after meeting Rick and others, he didn't want to continue heading to the illusory Washington. Therefore, when he was threatened and caught by Jiujiu, he did not struggle, but he just didn't know how to tell the truth. Abraham suddenly became angry when he saw that Jiujiu had controlled Eugene. When he thought about it, he should have died long ago, and if it hadn't been for what Eugene said, he wouldn't have been able to continue living. Escorting Eugene to Washington to save the world was the only support for his survival. He would not allow Jiujiu to expose Eugene so easily. XT moment, Abraham roared angrily. "Let go of Eugene, you damn Asian monkey, I won't allow you to hurt him." As he spoke, Abraham strode towards Jiujiu. Fortunately, he still had sense and did not point a gun at Jiujiu. Obviously he did not want to repay kindness with enmity, so he shot Jiujiu to death. Of course, Jiujiu is not afraid that Abraham will shoot him. Not to mention that he is sure to put Eugene in front of him to block the bullet before he shoots. Even the wolf warrior will not let him shoot easily. 020 Aaron and Sam from Alexandria. Sure enough, XT moment Abraham, who rushed towards Jiujiu angrily, was jumped from the side by Werewolf, and he was thrown to the ground by Werewolf just after he met him. The force of 1,000 kilograms was not something he, a human, could resist. His limbs were pressed to the ground by Zhang Lang's limbs. He could only open his mouth in vain and curse Jiujiu and Zhang Lang. Let me go if you can, let me go one-on-one with you, an Asian monkey, and see if I don't knock out all your teeth and let the cows eat them. You damn Asian monkey. And you piece of shit. Taiwan Novel Network. Circle them. Among everyone, Rick and others were dubious, but Carol and Beth completely believed in Jiujiu. After all, Jiujiu had no need to deceive everyone. What's more, except for Carol and the other four, everyone was rescued by Jiujiu, right? Rosita was completely stunned. She wanted to save Abraham, but subconsciously she was more willing to believe what Jiujiu said. Eugene was indeed not trusted by her that much. If her lover Abraham hadn't always believed in Eugene, she wouldn't have followed Abraham to escort Eugene to Washington. Along the way, there were quite a few people in their original team, but they all died trying to protect Eugene. She actually didn't want to go to that bullshit Washington. Eugene saw that no one stood up to speak for him except for the big man Abraham, and he understood that he couldn't get away with it today, so he gave up and said helplessly, Okay. I'll tell the truth." After speaking, he signaled Jiujiu to take away the knife. Seeing this, Jiujiu took back the knife and asked Eugene to tell the truth. Eugene looked around at everyone present. Except for Abraham, who continued to shout, everyone was silent. Then Eugene continued. "Actually, I'm not a scientist. I'm just an otaku who likes a little bit of everything. The reason why I want to trick everyone into going to Washington is just to survive. You also know how much a person like me, who has no courage or fighting ability, needs someone to protect me. And Washington is the capital of the entire United States. I think we can only be safe when we get there, right? I did this for everyone's benefit. I just didn't expect that this journey would be so difficult. So many people died before I even made it halfway. To be honest, I don't want to go to Washington anymore. Please forgive me. After all, my starting point is good, okay?" After speaking, Eugene bowed and saluted everyone present, especially Abraham and Rosita, and even lowered his head to the ground. Obviously, he felt much more guilty about these two. After all, Rosita's team members died because of him. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. After hearing Eugene tell the truth, everyone knew that it was impossible to go to Washington, and everyone no longer had a goal, and they all became hesitant for a while. Rosita and Abraham were so desperate that they almost suffocated. Abraham, who was still struggling a moment ago, was like a bear that had been drained of its strength. He allowed the wolf to press him to the ground, but his eyes were dull through the wolf's head, looking at the sky and muttering something. Rosita was stunned at first, then shook her head in disbelief, and then tears rolled down her eyes. She felt unworthy for herself, unworthy for Abraham, and even more unworthy for the dead team members. XT moment, Rosita's mood collapsed. She raised her hand to shoot Eugene, who had been bending down and bowing his head. However, Jiujiu reacted quickly and burst out at a speed of 17 meters per second, killing Rosita before she could shoot her. The muzzle of the gun was raised. And at lightning speed, he removed Rosita's weapon and said in a deep voice. Just like what he said, although he deceived you, his starting point was good, he just wanted to go to Washington. You can think about it, if you can really get there safely, it might be better than now some aren't. The only thing he didn't consider was that he didn't know how many zombies there would be on the way from here to Washington, and it was impossible for us to get there safely. The reason why I expose his lies is just to hope that everyone can calm down and think about their future. After saying that, Jiujiu shook his head at Werewolf again, motioned to let Abraham go, and then said, Werewolf, go and escort the people hiding outside to me. After saying that, with everyone's puzzled expressions, Jiujiu looked into the distance and said loudly, Hey! Friends, I know you are there, and I know you have no ill intentions towards us. But you keep following us like this, but don't come out to meet us. Doesn't it seem unfriendly? I'll ask my pet to ask you to come out. It's best to follow it here honestly, otherwise I can't guarantee that you can leave here alive. I can guarantee that as long as you come here honestly, I will promise to ensure your safety. I also ask these two gentlemen to cooperate. These words immediately put everyone on alert. Even the sad Rosita ignored the tears that had not been wiped off her face and was ready to fight at any time. Among the people present, only Jiujiu and Abraham looked indifferent. The only difference is that Jiujiu is really not afraid at all, while Abraham has fallen into a state of autism. After all, the ideal that he has been supporting him has been shattered. On the other side, Aaron and Sam were more panicked than ever, because they knew how scary the metal dog was. They wanted to run away, but after hearing Jiujiu's shout, they didn't dare to run anymore. After all, no matter how fast they moved, they couldn't outrun the metal dog that was as fast as a shadow. In addition, Aaron's investigation of Rick and others was almost done, and he originally planned to find a time to contact Rick and others. But they didn't expect that someone like Jiujiu would show up, which exposed the two of them. But since Jiujiu proposed to meet in person, Aaron waited honestly with Sam. Not long after, everyone saw two men who were unbelievably clean coming under the escort of Werewolf. From a distance, the two raised their hands, and Aaron, who was in the lead, said, Hi. Hello everyone, we have no ill intentions. My name is Aaron, and the one behind me is my friend Sam. As this gentleman said, the purpose of our coming here is to invite you to our base. Please give me a little time, I will introduce the situation of our base to everyone. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, with strong suspicion and disbelief in their eyes, but Jiujiu said, Werewolf and I have discovered you a long time ago. Since we came here, you have been hiding nearby. You said you are here to recruit them, so show your sincerity. 021 Trigger the ultimate hidden mission. After that, Jiujiu turned back and said to Rick and others, I think you can see that they are not armed personnel, nor do they look like bad people. I think you can listen to what they say, right? After all, you don't have a better place to go now. Also, don't forget that there are two children among you. A safe place is more suitable for Judith and Carl to live. Hearing this, Rick and others were stunned at first, and then they all put down their weapons silently, and all looked at Aaron and Sam. Seeing this, Aaron also breathed a sigh of relief and said, We came to the Alexander Resort Villa more than 100 kilometers away from here. There is sufficient electricity, water, food, comfortable big beds, and strong and tall walls. It is safe enough. As he said, he took off the backpack behind him, opened it, and took out a stack of photos to show Rick and others. Seeing these photos, Rick and others were moved. From the photos, the environment of the villa looks beautiful, and there is not even a sense of the end of the world. Seeing that everyone was already excited, Jiujiu continued to add fuel to the fire and said, Hey! Guys, I think everyone can go with Aaron to have a look. If everyone feels bad, just leave, right? Hearing this, Carol and others were even more excited and all looked at Rick, as if waiting for Rick to make the final decision. After a while, Rick finally made up his mind and took everyone to follow Aaron to Alexandria. At this moment, the system sounded again. Congratulations to the host for triggering Task 4, escort Rick and others to Alexander Villa safely. The host will be rewarded with 1,000 experience points for completing the task. After listening to the system's prompts, Jiujiu thought. Is it true? The task is triggered again. Since Beth was rescued, the system has tasks 1, 2, 3, and 4. Will there be subsequent tasks? Since Rick decided to go to Alexander Villa, everyone just packed up casually. Rick and Glenn also returned Jiujiu's Glock and rifle to Jiujiu. Everyone walked out of the forest, got on the car arranged by Aaron, and headed to Alexander Villa under Aaron's leadership. It was not until then that Jiujiu had time to check his upgraded attribute panel. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, mechanical hunter. Level 7, 400/800. Attributes. Strength, 5. Stamina, 5. Intelligence, 9. Spirit, 9. Agility, 9. Speed, 17 meters per second. Energy, 900, 9 points/minute recovery speed. Occupational talents and skills. 1. Primary Combat Master. 2. Primary Mechanical Master. Pet, Mechanical Dog War Wolf. Mount, none. Special Space, Mechanical Manufacturing Space 100 square meters, Mechanical Traps *14. Drawings, none. Note, Time and Space Shuttle function has 0 times remaining. Note, the only main-line Super God-level task kill Thanos and his lackeys. The successful task will reward 6 cosmic gems. After reading his attribute panel, Jiujiu suddenly remembered his mission 4, and wondered why the system would give 1,000 experience points for a simple escort mission. Unfortunately, after thinking for a long time, according to his experience of watching dramas in his ES life, he didn't encounter any danger along the way. Jiujiu, who couldn't figure it out, simply stopped thinking about it, and attributed the reason for the high experience to the fact that Rick and others were so many people. Beth hugged Jiujiu's arms with both hands, and her head gently rested on Jiujiu's shoulders. Maggie and Glenn also leaned against each other, but looked at Jiujiu carefully. Both of them hoped that Beth could find a reliable home in the end times, and Jiujiu's strength was strong enough to protect Beth's safety. The only thing that worried the two was that although Jiujiu looked young, his murderous intention was a little too heavy. This can be seen from the fact that Jiujiu killed all Gray's gang in the base without hesitation. It doesn't take much time to travel more than 100 kilometers. It's only been 2 hours since we started, and we've walked more than half of the way. At this moment, several pickup trucks suddenly rushed out from the road and blocked everyone's car. The road ahead was blocked, and several cars hurriedly braked. Everyone was almost hit by the inertia of emergency braking. Jiujiu was quick to react and immediately noticed something was wrong. He looked out of the window and saw 2 fully armed pickup trucks and more than a dozen fully armed personnel in the car. Now Jiujiu finally understood why the system gave such a high experience for Mission 4. It felt like there was still this in the middle. Knowing that there would be a battle, Jiujiu consciously communicated with the war wolf in the last truck box and asked it to prepare for the battle. Sure enough, XT moment, more than 20 people got off the pickup truck that blocked the road and surrounded all the vehicles of Jiujiu and others. The man in front, holding a pistol in his hand, walked to the front RV with great arrogance, knocked on the door with the butt of the gun, and signaled the people in the car to open the door. Rick looked at the men holding the gun who obviously had bad intentions, hesitated for a while, and then opened the door. After the door was opened, the men walked up, first glanced at Rick who was driving, then turned his head to look at the people in the RV, spread his hands and said, "Aha! Welcome to the Savior's territory. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce myself. I am Simon, the leader of the Savior. Remind you that when you come to our territory, you must abide by our rules. So, please hand over all your automatic weapons and we will let you go. How about it? Are you willing to hand over your weapons peacefully?" After saying that, his big eyes shot out a cold light, as if he would order Jiujiu and others to be killed without hesitation if they did not do so. XT moment. At this time, the system voice sounded in Jiujiu's mind. Host triggers the ultimate hidden mission, destroy the savior, kill the big leader Negan, 0/1, the boss, 0/5, and let the savior collapse. The mission is completed and rewarded with 10,000 experience points, and the mechanical space is expanded to 1,000 square meters. After listening to the system's task prompts, Jiujiu couldn't help but rub his teeth, and curse the perversion of the system task in his heart. The saviors can be said to be the strongest and biggest villain in the world of The Walking Dead. The big boss Negan is a perverted and charming villain, far surpassing the governor, the cannibal leader Grey, the whisperer Alpha, the garbage dump leader Janides, and other villain bosses. How many people are there in the saviors? From the play, we can roughly calculate that there are at least nearly 1,000 people. They have the most weapons and ammunition, and even heavy machine guns. It is really a headache for Jiujiu to destroy such a force. And the leader in front of him is Simon, who wants to seize Negan's power. This person is more vicious than Negan. The reason for this is that although Negan kills without mercy, he still has his own bottom line. He regards Alexandria, the kingdom of God, and the hilltop as plundering bases. Even if the 3 bases resist again, he will not take action to completely destroy them. 022 front and rear attack. Simon is not the same. His creed is that as long as he is disobedient, he will be completely eliminated, which will serve as a deterrent to scare the monkeys. Now that the ultimate mission has been triggered, Jiujiu will naturally not let Simon go, but he doesn't do it now. After all, Simon's men are all surrounding the convoy. If they take action now, Simon will inevitably die, but the people in the car are hard to say. Although Jiujiu didn't care about the life or death of Rick and others, he had to care about Beth, and he also had to care about Beth's sister and brother-in-law Glenn. However, although he cannot kill these people now, he can let Werewolf quietly lurk in the Salvation Army convoy, and when they're about to leave, launch a surprise attack to attract their attention, and then he can attack them from behind and attack them in one fell swoop. Just kill them all. Jiujiu made a good plan in his mind, and immediately communicated with Wolf Warrior with his mind, and then put his mechanical crossbow and Beth's mechanical crossbow closer to the space. As for the pistol and rifle on his body, he just put them away with them. Anyway, it's a matter of taking action. Simon's words finally made Rick compromise. Rick turned back to look at the people in the car and said, "Search TWKAN on Google. Give them all your weapons." Rick's words made Abraham and the others very puzzled, but since Rick was the leader of everyone, and under the threat of the Salvation Army, they had no choice but to look indignant, and were followed by several minions who came up from the Salvation Army. He took away the weapons on his body, leaving only daggers and other cold weapons for self-defense. Seeing how everyone dared to be angry but dared not speak, Simon felt very proud, and he became very proud. Simon had no reason to be dissatisfied. He thought he was just an ordinary person before the disaster. Unexpectedly, after the disaster, he became a person who is inferior to one person and superior to thousands of people. One word can determine life and death. It's really awesome. Be do or don't want it. He even imagined that one day the Salvation Army would not only control this state, but even spread to the entire United States, becoming a transcendent existence that controlled the entire United States. Thinking of this, Simon glanced at everyone in the car with satisfaction for the last time, and then walked out of the RV proudly. As soon as Simon left, several grumpy men in the car couldn't help cursing. However, Jiujiu stood up at this moment and walked toward the car door regardless of Beth's obstruction. Jiujiu's behavior naturally attracted everyone's attention. As the leader of everyone, Rick asked, "What do you want to do? I know you are very powerful, but the opponent has many people and you have no weapons. Do you want to provoke them and kill everyone regardless of the life and death of the people in the car? Please stay in the car with me, this is an order." Hearing the compromise and command in Rick's tone, Jiujiu said without looking back, "Mr. Rick, please recognize your identity. I am not your subordinate, nor am I one of you. You have no right to order me or dictate to me like you treat your subordinates. I can do whatever I want. Do you understand?" After speaking, Jiujiu raised his right hand and continued disdainfully, "No one in this world can yell at me. No one can bully me without paying the price. I have no objection to you being willing to be a coward, but I, Jiujiu. Absolutely, yes, no, do it." Jiujiu said the last 4 words one by one and stepped out of the RV without hesitation. Because he had sensed that the wolf warrior was about to take action, so as a master and a hunter, he naturally couldn't lag behind. Jiujiu's words completely shocked everyone in the car. There were only a few people who admired him, such as Carol, Abraham, Daryl, and Rosita. There were more people who felt that Jiujiu was overestimating his abilities. The Salvation Army men had returned to the 2 pickup trucks and were about to get in and leave. Jiujiu also walked out of the RV, took out the mechanical crossbow from the space with a flick of his hand, and loaded the steel ball pellet magazine with a click. Then Jiujiu quickly charged, because Werewolf had already taken the lead in attacking. 2 people in the Salvation Army in front were knocked to the ground by Werewolf suddenly appearing. Before they could even fire a shot, Jiujiu was knocked down by the weapon in his hand. The wolf's steel claws scratched his throat and died. The sudden situation immediately caused everyone in the Salvation Army to panic. The appearance of the wolf warriors was so sudden that no one thought of attacking them. It would be a metal monster. As the boss, Simon could still remain calm. Seeing that wolf warrior was just a metal dog, he immediately gave the order to shoot. "Shoot me, I don't care what it is, anyone who dares to kill my Salvation Army will die. Shoot it." Hearing this, a group of minions immediately surrounded the wolf, howling to encourage themselves, while shooting at the wolf. Wolf Warrior's mission is to attract firepower. At this time, he was besieged by the Salvation Army. It was convenient for Jiujiu to rush over and shoot these people. Jiujiu also rushed 30 meters behind the Salvation Army at this time. Instead of shooting the Salvation Army rashly first, Jiujiu first laid a mechanical trap on the ground leading to the road, and then picked up the mechanical crossbow and started shooting. Whoosh whoosh. The steel ball pellets were fired continuously. Several Salvation Army soldiers who fell behind were shot to the ground without any surprise. The sound of the steel ball pellets being fired was covered up by the gunfire, so that the other Salvation Army soldiers did not notice at all. A long sneak attack. Everyone's attention was attracted by the wolf warriors dodging left and right. It wasn't until Jiujiu continued to shoot 2 more people that he was discovered by Simon, who was hiding behind the car. Turning back, he saw Jiujiu holding a strange crossbow and shooting 5 of his men in consecutive sneak attacks. Simon's eyes were full of anger after being resisted. XT moment, Simon raised his pistol, turned around and shot at Jiujiu, started shooting and shouted, "This damn thing should belong to this Asian boy. If you kill him, there will be no one to direct the thing. Leave half of my people to contain the monster, and the rest will kill this Asian boy." As soon as his words came out, the Salvation Army responded immediately. Half of them continued to shoot at the wolf to end the wolf from approaching, and half of them turned their guns and prepared to shoot at Jiujiu. Jiujiu was not an Iron Man, so naturally he did not dare to brave the hail of bullets and confront the opponent. When Spencer fired, Jiujiu had already rushed out into the woods beside the road. Fortunately, the road was only more than 10 meters away from the woods. With Jiujiu's current speed of 17 meters per second, it only took more than a second to rush to the edge of the woods. He jumped forward and jumped into the woods just as the bullet was about to hit him, rolled a few times and hid behind a big tree. Seeing Jiujiu escaping, how could Simon let go of Jiujiu, who had killed several of his men? He immediately led his separated men to suppress Jiujiu with firepower while chasing him into the woods. 023 Simon and #039, S-Team destroyed. As for Rick and the others in the RV, Simon didn't take it seriously at all. In his opinion, they were just stronger ants without guns. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network diamondsuit. The several Salvation Army soldiers who were chasing behind Jiujiu didn't even notice the mechanical trap under their feet. They triggered the trap without any surprise. In the horrified eyes of several people, the mechanical trap bounced into the air with a buzz sound. XT moment, the sound of swish, swish sounded continuously within a few seconds, and the entire area within 20 meters was enveloped by crossbow arrows and steel balls. The dense crossbow arrows and steel balls made it impossible for several Salvation Army soldiers to hide. Amidst a burst of frightened screams, they were shot into a hornet's nest by the crossbow arrows and steel balls and fell to the ground dead. The terrifying weapon immediately shocked and frightened the lucky Simon. He was really lucky. Just when he ordered his men to chase Jiujiu, he stopped unexpectedly and turned around worriedly to glance at the wolf warrior who was still dodging from left to right and being besieged. It was this glance that saved him, allowing him to stop outside the 20-meter killing range of the trap and not be killed by the trap. All the men who were chasing Jiujiu died. Simon was completely frightened. He also understood that the remaining men were no match for Jiujiu. Simon hesitated for a long time before shouting to Jiujiu in the woods. "Hey! Asian boy, are you sure you want to go against our Salvation Army? I admit that you are very powerful, but you have to know that our Salvation Army has thousands of people. No matter how powerful you are alone, plus your pets. Can you kill us all? How about you consider joining our Salvation Army? As long as you join us, you can get it. Are you willing to accept my invitation?" Hearing this, Jiujiu curled his lips disdainfully and said, "Join you, rob others, and become something worse than a zombie in the apocalypse? No, I don't want to be a beast, I just want to be a human being, a normal person who still maintains a conscience. From the moment you stepped into the RV and took away my weapons, you, the Salvation Army, were my enemies. When dealing with enemies, we in China have a saying for you. That is, complete the task of eradicating evil." After saying that, Jiujiu used his mind to give the order to War Wolf to kill the remaining Salvation Army with all his strength, even if he was hit by a bullet. At the same time, Jiujiu also rushed out of the woods. Seeing that he couldn't fool Jiujiu, Simon cursed, "Damn it." The pistol started shooting after Jiujiu's figure. It's a pity that Simon is not a sharpshooter, and his nervous reaction cannot keep up with Jiujiu's speed. Several shots missed Jiujiu without hurting Jiujiu at all. On the other side, Wolf Warrior also braved the rain of bullets and rushed towards the remaining 5 Salvation Army soldiers. Countless bullets hit the metal body of Wolf Warrior and fired countless sparks. Although Wolf Warrior's body was riddled with craters, but it couldn't really hurt the Wolf Warrior's body. Amidst the desperate wails of several Salvation Army soldiers, Werewolf rushed in front of them, jumped into the air with a forward leap, and when it fell, it had already knocked 2 Salvation Army soldiers to the ground. With a sweep of its tail, it knocked down the other 3 Salvation Army soldiers. He fell to the ground, then rolled his tail backwards, and with 2 puff, puff, puff sounds, the sharp tip of his tail pierced the heads of the 2 Salvation Army soldiers under his claws. Before the rest of the Salvation Army could get up, the Wolf Warrior's body moved rapidly again, biting CK of one of the Salvation Army, and with its tail swaying, it stabbed the remaining 2 Salvation Army members who had just gotten up. In CK. Simon didn't notice the situation behind him at all. He just heard the sound of gunfire and suddenly stopped, and then heard the death cry of his men. He was suddenly frightened out of his wits. Under tremendous mental pressure, Simon was unwilling to sit back and wait for death. He expected to kill Jiujiu and stop that damn metal monster. Unfortunately, God failed to fulfill his wish. How many bullets can there be in the pistol? Even if he has replaced the magazine with a new one when chasing Jiujiu, how many bullets will be left after chasing Jiujiu's figure? Sure enough, along with Simon's unwilling roar, the pistol clicked and made an empty shot. Simon suddenly became desperate. With the metal monster behind him and Jiujiu in front of him who couldn't shoot, what else could he do? Unwilling to die like this, he hurriedly took out a magazine from his body and tried to change the magazine in a panic. Unfortunately, Jiujiu was faster than him. Just as he was removing the empty magazine, a cold object was pressed against his hanging head. Simon's movement of changing the magazine suddenly stopped, and he slowly raised his head. The first thing he saw was a crossbow full of technology. Through the gap in the crossbow, he saw Jiujiu's face, and Jiujiu's face. His eyes were full of cold murderous intent. Simon's legs softened involuntarily, and his original half-squatting movement turned into kneeling on the ground. Just when he was about to beg for mercy, he heard Jiujiu's cold voice say, "The Salvation Army. Ha. That's all. Go to hell and repent for the souls who died in your hands." When the sound fell, the last thing Simon heard was a buzz, pop, and the sound of a steel ball being shot into his head at close range. Then, Simon's body hit the ground with a bang, and he stared into the distance intently. From the beginning to the end of the battle, everyone in the car watched the whole process with their mouths open in shock. Wolf Warrior's sudden attack, Jiujiu's subsequent sneak attack, and traps laid out killed all the Salvation Army. They were like watching an action movie, and the only thought in their minds was, is this still an Earthling? How can he be so powerful? Even in a movie, he wouldn't dare to shoot like this, right? Jiujiu didn't care what they thought. He looked at the war wolf who had come to him and rubbed his thigh with heartache, and looked at the dense craters on his body, thinking that he would waste a lot of energy and metal to repair the war wolf's body. At this moment, Jiujiu was more and more eager to get the vibranium. With it, he could rebuild the war wolf's body without fear of any hot weapon attack. While thinking about his own things, Jiujiu found his original equipment from the car and re-equipped himself. It was not until then that everyone in the RV got off the car and came to the battlefield full of corpses. Everyone looked at Jiujiu with different expressions. Several fighting maniacs looked at Jiujiu with shock and admiration in their eyes, but Rick and others were afraid and terrified in their eyes. Beth threw herself on Jiujiu, regardless of the host Jiujiu's neck, and gave him a fierce hot kiss. Maggie looked at the two people kissing passionately with relief and worry in her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. After a long while, the two separated, and Beth hugged Jiujiu tightly, as if she was afraid that Jiujiu would leave XT moment. Jiujiu then looked at everyone and said indifferently, "You can take back your weapons, and the Savior Army's weapons will also be given to you. It's getting late, and there's still a long way to go, so hurry up." 025 Salvation Army Outpost. From the pet space, he summoned the war wolf, who had rested but had not had time to repair, and left the villa alone. Jiujiu borrowed a car from the villa and went straight to a satellite base station that he had already inquired about. He knew from the show that several of the Savior Army's outposts were in the satellite base station. The specific location of the Savior Army's base was not explained in the show, but it didn't matter. Jiujiu planned to destroy the Savior Army's outpost first, ask them about the location of the base and other outposts, and then set traps as he promised Beth, slowly hunting the Savior Army. Taiwan Novel Network. On the way, Jiujiu took the war wolf into the mechanical space, used energy to melt metal to repair the war wolf's body, and used the remaining energy to create 3 mechanical traps, replenishing crossbows and steel ball projectiles. I also took the time to check my attribute panel. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16. Occupation, Mechanical Hunter. Level 8, 600/900. Attributes. Strength, 5. Stamina, 5. Intelligence, 10. Spirit, 10. Agility, 10. Speed, 18 meters per second. Energy, 1000, 10 points/minute recovery speed. Occupational talents and skills. 1. Primary Combat Master. 2. Primary Mechanical Master. Pet, Mechanical Dog War Wolf. Mount, none. Special Space, Mechanical Manufacturing Space 100 square meters, Mechanical Traps *17. Drawings, none. Note, Time Travel Function has 0 times remaining. Note, the only main-line Super God-level task, kill Thanos and his lackeys. 6 Cosmic Gems are rewarded for successful tasks. Hidden Task 3, kill the zombies, 3520/10,000, reward experience 5,000, and a blueprint for ordinary mount modified motorcycle. The ultimate hidden mission, destroy the saviors, kill the big leader Negan, 0/1, the boss, 1/5, and let the saviors collapse. The mission is completed and rewarded with 5,000 experience points, and the mechanical space is expanded to 1,000 square meters. Are you satisfied? To be honest, Jiujiu is still very satisfied. Although the power of only 400 kilograms is insignificant compared to the power of a cosmic-level strongman like Thanos, this is only the first world. What's more, there are still 10 years, and Jiujiu can wait. There is enough time for him to develop and improve his strength. The Wolf Warrior and the Mechanical Trap also gave him a lot of confidence. You must know that the Wolf Warrior and the Mechanical Trap are only primary mechanical products. When the level of the blueprint is improved in the future, I believe that more mechanical pets will join his team. At that time, facing Thanos' alien army, there will be a battle. Diamond Suit. Diamond Suit. The only thing that makes Jiujiu dissatisfied is that so far, only one mechanical pet can be summoned, judging from the situation understood by the system. Mechanical pets can be created unlimitedly, but now only one can be summoned to fight. Jiujiu also thought about making a few more mechanical dogs, but when he thought about the fact that the combat power of mechanical dogs was not too high, he gave up the idea of making more. Jiujiu's plan after coming out was very clear. He killed zombies all the way to complete Hidden Mission 3, slowly cleared the outpost of the Saviors, until the Saviors' army was let out, and ambushed and killed as many as he could with mechanical traps. Finally, he cooperated with Werewolf to kill into the base of the Saviors and kill the remaining 4 leaders and the big boss Negan. After dawn, Jiujiu had left the villa for dozens of kilometers, and the number of zombies on the road gradually increased. Jiujiu got out of the car, put the car into the space, decomposed it into materials and piled it up, took the fully recovered Werewolf and started to kill zombies all the way, and moved towards the satellite base station. At this time in Alexander Villa, Rick and others had woken up, and Maggie went to Jiujiu and Beth's villa as soon as possible. All she saw was Beth, who was still sleeping in bed, but Jiujiu was nowhere to be seen. Seeing her sister Beth with tears on her face, Maggie knew that Jiujiu had already embarked on the journey of eradicating the Saviors alone, just as he said. To be honest, Maggie's heart was very complicated. She recognized Jiujiu's strength, but she was worried that her sister would die outside one day if she followed Jiujiu. After all, Jiujiu's murderous intention was too strong, and it was like this in the rescue station, and it was even more so when he met the Saviors. For such a person, no matter how powerful he was, she would not worry about her sister's safety. After everyone knew that Jiujiu had left, Rick and others completely relaxed, even Abraham and others who admired Jiujiu were the same. Only Carol didn't think so. She had similar ideas to Jiujiu. No matter who it was or how many enemies there were, as long as they threatened their families, they had to be like Jiujiu. Killing them mercilessly was the safest. It was already past 10 in the morning, and Jiujiu and Werewolf killed so many zombies along the way that he couldn't remember it himself. I was too lazy to look at the system information. After all, the number of 10,000 was too much. Jiujiu only knew that he had come this far. The number of zombies encountered was a few wandering alone, and there were also groups of more than 10 or 20 zombies. With the belief that killing one zombie would complete 1/10,000th of the goal, Jiujiu and Werewolf killed all the way. During this period, Jiujiu was also thinking about how to kill zombies on a large scale. Not to mention, he thought of a few ways, such as gather the zombies, lead them to a closed space, and kill them collectively with gasoline or bombs. Unfortunately, it has been a few years since the end of the world. Although gasoline and bombs are not absolutely available, they are also difficult to find. Or use mechanical traps to collectively kill the zombies, but the restriction of mechanical traps is that they cannot be triggered remotely. Whether it is one zombie or many zombies, the trap can be triggered. This uncontrollable factor is also one of the reasons why Jiujiu cannot achieve collective killing. After thinking about it, Jiujiu had no choice but to take different measures to kill the zombies according to the situation. When he arrived at the satellite base station, it was already noon. Jiujiu hid in the woods. First, he replenished the energy of the Werewolf, let the Werewolf keep watch for him, and took out canned meat, biscuits, and mineral water from the space for lunch. After finishing the work, he took out the telescope to observe the situation of the satellite base station. Maybe it was lunchtime. Jiujiu only found 2 saviors guarding the roof. The others did not see that the zombies outside the base were cleaned up by the saviors. The guards did not shoot the zombies when a few zombies occasionally wandered over. This made Jiujiu feel troubled. He had no idea how many people were in the base, what the firepower was, and whether there were any weapons such as grenades and machine guns, so he did not dare to attack the base now. Fortunately, at around 2 o'clock, the gate of the base station was opened, and more than 30 people came out of the base station one after another. More than 10 of them got into the cars outside the base station, and more rode motorcycles. Under the leadership of the small leader of the base station, they went out of the base station and did not know where they went. Jiujiu did not chase them. Seeing these people go out, Jiujiu had a plan. 026 new uses for mechanical traps. After these people walked away, Jiujiu and Zhang Lang would sneak into the base station, first deal with the guards in the base station, then ambush in the base station, and wait for these people to come back, and then find a way to kill them one by one. Google search reading. Half an hour after the saviors left, Jiujiu began to act. Taking advantage of the gap when the guards upstairs turned around, Jiujiu and Zhang Lang rushed out quickly. The woods were only a few dozen meters away from the base station gate. At Jiujiu's current speed, it only took a few seconds to run over. When the two guards turned around again, Jiujiu and Zhang Lang had already rushed to the base station gate. Luckily, the base station gate was not locked, and Jiujiu and Zhang Lang easily entered the base station. Google search TWKAN. At this time, there were not many people in the base station. Except for a few guards on night duty sleeping in the room, it can be said that there was no one. Jiujiu ordered Werewolf to go to the roof and kill the two guards, while he searched the rooms with a mechanical crossbow and eliminated the sleeping saviors one by one. As for the remaining weapons in the base station, Jiujiu put them all into the space without hesitation, and then began to set traps in the base. In fact, Jiujiu was too cautious. With his current combat power and Werewolf strength, in the narrow environment of this base station, without heavy firepower, not to mention the mere 30 or so saviors, even if there were hundreds of people, they would not be his and Werewolf's opponents. Of course, it is necessary for Jiujiu to be so cautious. After all, this is a battle, not a game, so it is not too careful. After setting a trap in the corridor, Jiujiu found a place and had a good rest. It was not until dusk that Jiujiu learned from Werewolf, who was on sentry duty outside the base station, that the saviors had returned to the outside of the base station. Standing up, Jiujiu checked the equipment. This time, Jiujiu did not choose to use a mechanical crossbow to fight the enemy, but chose a more convenient pistol. With a large capacity of 33 rounds of bullets and light and compact, the pistol is obviously more convenient than a mechanical crossbow in a narrow space. Hidden in the room in the center of the base station, Jiujiu was like an old hunter patiently waiting for prey, quietly squatting behind a large machine, while Werewolf hid outside the base station, ready to launch a fatal attack on the savior army from behind. Not long after, there was a noisy argument and scolding at the door of the base station. It was obvious that the people who came back did not find the guards and had become suspicious. Sure enough, XT moment, Jiujiu keenly heard the clatter, click sound of pulling the bolt. Then, the hurried footsteps sounded in the corridor. Jiujiu began to count silently in his heart. When he counted to 10, he heard the sound of swoosh, swoosh, swoosh in the corridor, as well as the screams of people before they died and the wailing of people who could not bear the pain after being injured. Obviously, the mechanical trap set by Jiujiu has been triggered by the savior army. It is unknown how many savior army soldiers were killed. To be honest, Jiujiu did not have much hope. How many enemies could be killed by the mechanical trap? After all, due to the narrow environment, the killing range of the trap of 20 meters could not kill many enemies. Jiujiu only set one trap, because the savior army who had been fooled once would not be stupid enough not to check whether there were any traps in the corridor. Although Jiujiu's trap is a product of black technology, it also has many shortcomings. For example, it needs to be triggered by contact, and the target is obvious. In short, as long as you see the trap and don't touch it, it will not have much effect. In fact, it is true. The corridor is long and narrow and can't squeeze so many people. There are actually only a dozen people within 20 meters before and after the trap. Therefore, the savior army killed by this wave of traps is only a dozen people. After waiting patiently for a few minutes, the noisy sound in the corridor stopped. The savior army, who had long developed the habit of silence in the end of the world, walked lightly into the base station. If Jiujiu's spiritual attribute had not reached 10 points, he might not have heard their footsteps. XT moment, the savior army entered the room, with several tall and strong men in front of them, all holding assault rifles, and their firepower was really strong. They carefully checked the surrounding movements while paying attention to whether there were traps under their feet, and their faces were very nervous. Jiujiu also launched an attack at this time, hiding behind the machine, only showing his head and the arm holding the gun, raising the pistol and shooting continuously. The crisp and light sound of bang 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 resounded in the room and the corridor. The first few savior army men fell to the ground, with a bloody hole on their foreheads and chests. They were obviously killed by Jiujiu. XT moment, noisy shouts and curses came from the corridor, and fierce gunshots of da-da-da also rang out, and countless bullets were shot into the room. The bullets hit the machines in the room, making a dense dang-dang-dang sound, and many computer screens on the table were shattered by the bullets. Jiujiu had to squat a little lower, hiding behind the machine, holding his head with both hands, cursing mad. XT moment, the base station door was opened again, and the wolf warrior appeared silently in the corridor, attacking from behind when the saviors were concentrating on the room. The power and speed of the war wolf were not comparable to those flesh and blood saviors. In just a few seconds, the war wolf pounced on 2 people, stabbed 2 people to death with its tail, swept 3 people with its tail, and bit 2 people to death. The saviors who were shooting in front heard the screams of their companions behind them, and realized that there were still enemies behind them. In a panic, they turned their guns and shot at the war wolf. Unfortunately, the bullets hit the war wolf, only bursting out sparks, but could only leave countless bullet marks on the metal body of the war wolf. Jiujiu also rushed out at this time, subconsciously took out a trap from the space, shook his hand and threw it into the corridor, and hid behind the wall of the room. The trap fell into the corridor with a bang, and XT second it was ejected into the air with a buzz, and a series of arrows and steel balls shot out with a swoosh. A series of screams of ah suddenly came out in the corridor. Jiujiu was stunned and couldn't help but call himself idiot. Obviously, he didn't expect that after he threw the trap as a grenade, the trap fell to the ground and triggered the mechanism, creating a grenade-like effect. This is also the habitual thinking that limits Jiujiu's imagination, who stipulates that the trap must be triggered on the ground. Although the weight of the mechanical trap is dozens of kilograms, it is not something that ordinary people can throw out. 027 A group of zombies gather in a small town and kill them. But is Jiujiu an ordinary person? Don't forget that Jiujiu's current strength is 500 kilograms. It's easy to throw a few dozen kilograms of weight 100 or 80 meters. Just when Jiujiu secretly blamed himself for being too conservative, the arrows and steel balls in the trap had been fired, and there was no sound in the corridor. Then, the body of the war wolf appeared in front of Jiujiu. Looking at the dense bullet marks on the body of the war wolf, Jiujiu was also very distressed. It would consume a lot of his energy again. After using the trap as a grenade subconsciously just now, Jiujiu also had a tactical arrangement for future battles. With such a powerful trap grenade, Jiujiu didn't need to let the war wolf be a bait to attract firepower, and he could maximize the speed advantage of the war wolf. Looking at the dead bodies of the savior army on the ground, many of their heads were not injured. Jiujiu didn't plan to make up for it. After all, the bodies that hadn't turned into zombies yet would not increase the progress of the task if they were killed. It would be better to keep these bodies and add some trouble to the savior army after they turned into zombies. After collecting all the weapons scattered on the ground, whether intact or not, Jiujiu took Werewolf and left the base station. Google search TWKAN. He couldn't wait to find a large group of zombies and test his new tactics. After leaving the base station, he collected the cars and motorcycles left by the saviors into the space one by one. The extra ones were decomposed and smelted into raw materials, leaving only 2 motorcycles in the space as raw materials for modifying mounts. He repaired Werewolf's body and replenished his energy, and filled the empty traps with arrows and steel balls. Jiujiu was ready to find a larger town to kill zombies in large numbers. At this time, in Alexander Villa, Rick and others were accepting Diana's inquiries, but Beth was depressed and worried about Jiujiu. She was very upset because Jiujiu left quietly without even saying goodbye to her. If she hadn't been afraid of being a burden to Jiujiu, and her sister Maggie's strong resistance, she would have left the villa regardless of everything to look for Jiujiu. After driving away from the base station, Jiujiu soon regretted his impulsiveness. Seeing that it was getting dark, he left the relatively safe base of the base station and ran outside to suffer. He was really stupid. But since he had left, he didn't want to go back. With Werewolf, the wild was not so dangerous for him. It was certainly inconvenient to kill zombies at night. Jiujiu found a place and got off the car. He took out the tent from the space and set it up. He made a dinner for himself and asked Werewolf to keep watch for him. He entered the space consciously and created more mechanical traps and arrow steel balls until the energy was exhausted. He made 5 more traps and enough arrows and steel balls, loaded the traps, and then went into the tent to sleep. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. XT day, he replenished the energy of the wolf warrior as usual, and made 3 more mechanical traps, filled with arrows and steel balls. At present, Jiujiu's space already has 25 mechanical traps. It's not that Jiujiu doesn't want to make more, but there is no room for too many things in the space. After all, no matter how big the space is, it is only 100 square meters. How many things can be piled up, not to mention that most of the space is piled with smelted metal. This also makes Jiujiu more eager to complete the tasks issued by the system. Thinking that he can get the mount blueprint after completing the task, and the space can be expanded to 1,000 square meters, Jiujiu is full of motivation. At present, it is natural to go hand in hand with the 2 tasks, while destroying the Salvation Army, looking for a large group of zombies to kill. The so-called children make choices, adults want everything. Well, that's the reason. Leaving the camp, there is a small town not far away. Driving to the town, looking at the somewhat familiar environment in front of him, Jiujiu had an epiphany. This was the warehouse where Glenn's team was besieged by zombies in the play, resulting in the death of 2 members of the team. Thinking of this, Jiujiu thought that although the town seemed calm, there were many zombies hidden in the warehouse and the house, and Jiujiu became excited. From the play, we can know that there are at least hundreds or thousands of zombies hidden here. As long as a wave of them is eliminated, the progress of the task will be greatly improved. But how to kill these zombies safely, Jiujiu really needs to plan it well. Thinking of this, Jiujiu carefully looked at the environment around the town. After looking left and right, Jiujiu had a plan. Opposite the warehouse, there is a small building with 2 floors, which is neither high nor low, just suitable for Jiujiu to hide on it. Well, with a suitable location, the rest is how to attract all the zombies in the town, which is also easy to do. Jiujiu acted quickly and opened all the gates in the town. Of course, he tried not to make a big noise in the process, so as not to alarm the zombies in advance. This process was very time-consuming. After Jiujiu finished all this, more than 2 hours had passed. When he returned to the small building, Jiujiu thought with a little regret, it would be better if there were more teammates. However, this was just Jiujiu's wishful thinking. After all, the powerful Rick team and the cruel Negan's saviors would not be willing to fight zombies for no reason. In the past, they killed zombies only because they had no choice. There are very few people in this world who specialize in hunting zombies like Jiujiu. After sitting on the hood of the car that drove out from the Salvation Army base station and resting for 10 minutes, Jiujiu opened the car door, started the car, and turned up the car audio to the maximum to attract the zombies to gather. Sure enough, after the audio was turned on, a zombie swung out of the room, tilted his head and listened carefully, and then walked towards the car. Seeing that the zombies were indeed attracted out, Jiujiu immediately took action and quickly entered the small building with Werewolf. After killing several zombies in the small building, he went to the roof. Turning back and holding the passage door tightly with something, Jiujiu came to the edge of the roof and looked at the ground below. It didn't matter when he saw it. Wow, there were no less than 30 zombies surrounding the car, all of them stretched out their hands to hit the car windows and windshield, making a bang-bang knocking sound. There were also more than 40 zombies gathered around, and zombies continued to come out of the warehouse opposite and other houses, gathering towards the car. Seeing that the zombies were almost gathered, Jiujiu took out a trap from the space and muttered to himself. Whether we can kill the zombies on a large scale depends on you. After that, Jiujiu looked at the ground, estimated the distance, nodded, and threw the trap in his hand out with force. The trap drew an arc in the air and fell to the ground in front of the car, which was the center of the zombies. 028 First Real Close Combat. There were so many zombies that the trap hit a zombie before it even hit the ground. XT moment, just as Jiujiu thought, the trap was triggered immediately. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Google search and read. The trap that was about to fall to the ground was ejected by an inexplicable force, rising to a height of 2 meters above the head of the zombie, and then exploded with countless arrows and steel balls. Within 20 meters of the trap, at least 70 or 80 zombies were shot in the head by arrows and steel balls, and immediately fell to the ground. The area within 20 meters suddenly became empty. The walking corpses were like straws in a wheat field, radiating in a circle and falling over a large area in layers. They looked neat and spectacular. Seeing such a scene, Jiujiu excitedly clenched his fist and waved it, shouting, "Yes!" He continued to take out a trap from the space, holding it in his hand and waiting for the zombies below to gather again. What Jiujiu didn't know was that just as he was gathering the zombies to kill them, behind the wall of a house in the distance, Glenn, Daryl, Aiden, Nicholas, and Eugene also arrived in the town. They watched with caution and fear as more and more walking corpses gathered in front of the car with music constantly playing in front of the small building. They saw an Asian man on the small building throwing a strange object, knocking out all the walking corpses within 20 meters. Kill all the corpses. Aiden and Nicholas both opened their mouths in shock and softly exclaimed in disbelief. What are you doing? Are there still people who actively attract walking zombies and treat killing walking zombies like killing monsters in a game? Oh, no, bullshit. Hearing this, Glenn and Daryl glanced disdainfully. The two were obviously frightened. Glenn said, "No, you are wrong. There is someone so powerful. He will kill walking corpses and kill people as if they are killing monsters. He is that magical Chinese boy, Yi." Hearing this, Aiden and Nicholas asked in unison. What? Do you know the person who killed the zombies? Or is he a Chinese? After speaking, Aiden continued. No, you must have lied to me, right? How can any Chinese be so powerful? When Daryl heard this, he said in a deep voice with no emotion. No, this is true, this is what we have seen with our own eyes. He killed several times more walking zombies at one time, at least several thousand. He also killed many cannibals, and someone who has ill intentions towards him and offended him. After saying that, Daryl seemed not satisfied yet and continued to add. He is the most powerful hunter I have ever seen. Yes, he is a hunter. After hearing what Daryl, who was like a dull gourd and didn't talk much, said so much, Aiden and Nicholas had no choice but to believe what they said. Diamond suit, diamond suit. Looking at the distance, the Chinese named Yi threw another strange thing and killed more than 70 walking corpses that had just gathered. The two of them swallowed a mouthful of saliva, eyes filled with laughter. There are emotions of fear and admiration flickering. Eugene didn't say a word, but his face had completely stiffened and his legs began to tremble. He couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. Fortunately, Yi was in this small town. If it hadn't been for Yi, they might have walked into the town. If one of them didn't attract the zombies, the 5 of them would have been attracted by so many walking corpses. The corpse was torn into pieces and eaten clean. Under Vao's gaze of the 5 people, Jiujiu would throw out a big killer weapon every few minutes and kill dozens of walking corpses. Seeing that the walking corpses around the car were piling up higher and higher, the walking corpses were. The number of them was getting smaller and smaller, and a feeling arose in the hearts of the 5 people at the same time. Only people like he can be considered true zombie hunters, the real strong ones who can survive in the apocalypse. Seeing that the walking zombies below were decreasing in number and sparsely distributed, Jiujiu picked up the mechanical crossbow he had prepared long ago, squatted on the roof of the building and began to use crossbow arrows to name and headshot the walking zombies one by one. Soon, in the shocked and numb eyes of the 5 Glens, Jiujiu killed all the walking corpses within 150 meters below, put away the mechanical crossbow, and moved away from the blockade with Werewolf. He checked the debris blocking the passage door, took out the dog-leg knives on both sides of his thighs, and walked down. After a while, Glenn and the other 5 saw Jiujiu walking out of the small building with a pair of swords. They yelled, "Oh," and saw Jiujiu stomping on a few walking corpses scattered on the outermost periphery. He rushed forward with the walking corpses and the blood all over the ground. A scene that shocked them happened. Jiujiu rushed in front of the walking corpse, cut off the head of the walking zombie that rushed towards him with a sharp knife. He kicked the zombie's body over with his kick, swung his 2 knives across each other, and chopped off the heads of the 2 zombies from their necks. Then he shook his hands and threw the knife in his right hand, and pierced the head of one zombie. Middle. The knife in his left hand was handed into his right hand, and the light of the knife flew through the air quickly, killing another zombie who wanted to attack him. Seeing this, the 5 people couldn't help but shouted in unison. Chinese Kung Fu. Jiujiu, who was so excited to kill, naturally couldn't hear the exclamations of the 5 people 200 to 300 meters away from him. At this time, he was completely caught up in the passion of real hand-to-hand combat. To be honest, this was the first time he had actually used melee weapons to fight walking zombies. It was only from this moment that he truly understood and practiced the knowledge of melee combat that the system had instilled in him. To put it bluntly, systematic melee combat knowledge and skills are real battlefield fighting skills. Every Chinese boy has a beautiful fantasy of fighting in the martial arts world with a sword, taking revenge, and being happy. Although he can't compare with the high martial arts of the real martial arts world at this time, it's not much different. The feeling of every knife seeing blood and every knife piercing the flesh made Jiujiu completely excited. Unfortunately, there were not many zombies left. After he chopped them down for a while, and some were killed by werewolf, all the zombies were killed by one man and one dog. Jiujiu stopped slashing, panting slightly, and wiped the blood on the knife on the zombie, and then put it back into the cowhide knife sheath on his thigh. In fact, he was not tired at all, but just panting because of excessive excitement. It was not until then that he began to pull out the other dog-leg knife he had thrown out earlier from the zombie's head, wiped off the blood and put it into the knife sheath. He also ordered Werewolf to find the traps that had been fired, and put them into the space to replenish arrows and steel balls. He didn't want to move the corpses of the zombies that were so smelly that they made him sick, but the trap had to be taken back, so naturally he asked the Werewolf, who was twice as strong as him, to do it. While the Werewolf was looking for the trap, Jiujiu took the time to check the progress of Hidden Mission 4. Well, it was not bad. It took more than 3 hours in total to kill more than 800 zombies. The current progress is 4533/10,000. It seems that as long as he comes a few more times, Mission 4 can be completed. 029 Negan and #039, S order, find the murderer. Only then did the 5 Glens come back to their senses. The 5 of them looked at each other, and their meanings were obvious. Do you want to go out and meet Yi? Jiujiu had already put all the traps that Wolf Warrior dug out of the pile of corpses into the space. He took a proud look at the walking corpses on the ground and was about to leave. 69shux. Google search reading. The 5 Glens finally decided to come out and meet Jiujiu. They walked out of the corner where they were hiding and Glenn shouted loudly. Yi, wait. Hearing this, Jiujiu turned around and looked behind him in surprise. He saw Glenn and a group of 5 people walking over. Seeing that it was Glenn calling him, Jiujiu had to speak. Oh, it's you, Glenn. Why are you here? Hearing this, Glenn replied as he walked. We came out to look for supplies. Yi, why are you here? Didn't you go find the Salvation Army? Hearing this, Jiujiu rolled his eyes and shrugged and said. I only found one outpost of the Salvation Army. I killed more than 30 of them yesterday. I don't know where their lair is. I passed by here today and saw too many zombies in the town, so I started to clean it up. Hearing this, Glenn and Daryl nodded as expected, as if they had expected this. However, Aiden and Nicholas were surprised and looked at Jiujiu, who was as casual about killing people as he was about killing walking corpses. This was the first time they had heard of the Salvation Army, but after hearing Jiujiu personally admit that he had killed more than 30 people, they realized that what Glenn and the others said was actually true. This Chinese named Yi was really a ruthless person. Killing walking corpses and killing people is not a problem. Glenn looked hesitant and seemed to endure it again and again, but continued. Yi, Beth misses you so much. When will you go back to the villa to see Beth? Hearing this, Jiujiu's expression suddenly softened. To be honest, he really missed Beth a little. But then I thought about it and thought that I could only stay in this world for 1 year, so I resisted the idea of going to see Beth. After all, the long-term pain is worse than the short-term pain. It would be better for Beth to forget about me as soon as possible, so I sighed and shook my head. He shook his head and said. Forget it. It's for Beth's sake that I don't go back. If we don't get rid of the cancer of the Salvation Army as soon as possible, according to their bad behavior, your villa will not be safe sooner or later. Well, when I can survive, I can go back look at Beth. After saying that, Jiujiu didn't want to continue talking to a few people. To be honest, he didn't want to see these people. He was too soft-hearted to kill people. If it were Carol, it would be about the same. After all, Carol is the one who can really kill people cruelly. Glancing at the 5 people, Jiujiu waved to them, turned around and said. I'm leaving now. I have to find XT Salvation Army outpost. See you later. As soon as the sound fell, Jiujiu walked towards the car that was still playing the music without looking back. He got in and started the car, running over the corpses and dirty blood on the ground, and drove out of the town under the watchful eyes of Glenn and others. It was only then that Aiden and Nicholas reacted and asked in surprise. "Who are the Salvation Army? Why did you want to kill them?" Glenn looked at Jiujiu, who was leaving with complicated eyes, and said without looking back. "The Salvation Army is a survivor organization. They have gathered a large group of people who don't search for supplies but only rob other survivors. They are an evil organization." After speaking, Glenn shook his head and said, "Okay, the zombies here have been cleared away by Yi, let's go find Eid supplies." Not to mention the 5 Glens searching for supplies in the town, Jiujiu had to stop the car shortly after leaving the town because it ran out of gas. In desperation, Jiujiu had Northwest choice but to close the car into the space, break it down into materials, and move forward on foot with Wolf Warrior. In the conference room of a building more than 100 kilometers away from Jiujiu, a man wearing leather clothes sat at the top. On the table in front of him was a baseball bat studded with nails and wrapped with iron wire. The people below were divided into 2 sides. There were 2 men and 1 woman, and the atmosphere in the conference room was very dull. The man sitting at the top saw no one spoke for a long time. He leaned back on the chair, put his right hand on the table and tapped his fingers rhythmically and said, "Simon is dead and you haven't found out who did it yet. Well, one of our outposts was also stolen yesterday. Do you know who did it?" When Yen, the 2 men and 1 woman sitting there were silent, the expressions on their faces were unwilling but more fearful. Seeing this, the man at the top took back his right hand, folded his hands and said, Wow. Look at you, you are all senior leaders of the Salvation Army, how can you be stumped by such a trivial matter? Don't you have the manpower? The person who killed Spencer can still run to the edge of the world, is that right? They are just people in some survivor base. You can use them to intimidate or induce them, and there will always be people who know them, right? After saying that, the men sat up straight and glanced at the 3 of them with sharp eyes for a while before saying, "What are we? We are the invincible Salvation Army. No matter what kind of enemy it is impossible to challenge us. Because you have an invincible, godlike leader. Tell me, who am I?" When the 3 heard this, their bodies trembled like a conditioned reflex, and they shouted in unison, "Negan." The men smiled evilly with satisfaction, picked up the baseball bat on the table, pointed at the 3 of them and asked again, "Where is Negan?" The 3 people shook their bodies again and shouted in unison, "We are all Negan. Negan is everywhere." The man was satisfied now, and laughed and said, "Haha. Okay, get to work. I want you to find those people for me within 3 days, and my zombie park should also add new ornamental pets, haha." After that, the man stood up, put the bat on his shoulder, and walked out of the meeting room like a gangster. The leader turned around and looked at the 3 people in the room, as if watching a joke. "By the way, don't let me and my baby Lucille down, otherwise my baby will be very angry, understand?" After that, the men really walked out of the meeting room, leaving the 3 people in the room, looking at each other with ugly faces, and the deep fear in their eyes could not be dispelled. After a long time, the 3 people sat down as if relieved, looked at each other, and then assigned the survivor bases under their jurisdiction, and tried to find out who killed Spencer and destroyed the outpost within 3 days. Jiujiu was killing the zombies he met on the road. He didn't know that the saviors had already started to find him. Even if he knew, it didn't matter. It was just a fight. Although he was only 1 man and 1 dog, he was sure that he could wipe out Negan's saviors by himself. When Jiujiu had just cleared the zombies in the forest and wanted to take a break, Werewolf notified him with his mind that 3 people were coming. After receiving this news, Jiujiu was very surprised and secretly wondered who these 3 people were. Were they from the saviors? 030 The hunt begins. Just as I was thinking about it, there were panicked footsteps in the distant forest. XT moment, a man and 2 women ran out of the forest. They met Jiujiu and a big metal dog, as well as people walking all over the ground. Corpse. Google search reading. Subconsciously, the man reacted immediately, raised the pistol in his hand, and threatened. "Don't move, or I'll beat you to death." "Sir, put down the crossbow in your hand, I'm not kidding." Jiujiu was unmoved when he heard the words. Then he looked at the man's appearance. He had golden, slightly curly hair hanging over his shoulders, a long and thin face with big eyes, and a beard that was neither long nor short. Jiujiu recognized this man at a glance as the traitor Dwight of the Salvation Army, and finally returned to the Salvation Army and became a gold medal thug who was as vicious as Unigan. As for the two women beside him, they are his girlfriend and sister. Dwight saw that Jiujiu was not afraid of him, so he tightened his pistol a little angrily and continued to threaten. "Damn it, raise your hands, or I'll beat you to death." "Shirley, put away his weapons, we need his weapons." After hearing this, Shirley glanced at Dwight hesitantly, then walked forward. As soon as she took the step, she heard Jiujiu say, "Brother, are you sure you want to do this? The consequences will be serious." Hearing this, Dwight was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He suddenly became angry and made a move to shoot. But xt moment, he was thrown to the ground by the wolf warrior who pounced on him, holding down his limbs. As he fell to the ground, there was a clear gunshot sound. The two women were frightened and screamed by the sudden turn of events. Jiujiu ignored the two women, stepped forward and took the pistol out of Dwight's hand, and then said bitterly, "I hate it when someone threatens me with a gun. Congratulations, you did it. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Hearing this, Dwight shouted angrily and horrified. "You are dead, we are all dead. The sound of gunfire will attract all the Salvation Army who are chasing us from behind. You damn bastard." Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged indifferently and said with a chill in his eyes, "Oh, the Salvation Army. I'm looking for trouble with these people, tell me how many there are there." Dwight was stunned when he heard this, and then burst into laughter, his voice full of ridicule and unwillingness, and continued to yell. "You are a fucking lunatic. Who do you think you are? Rambo. You still want to cause trouble for the Salvation Army? Do you know how many people there are in the Salvation Army? Haha, ignorant idiots, there are dozens of people chasing us alone, and the base and outposts combined are even more, at least thousands of people. Haha, kid, are you scared now? Haha, damn it, we managed to escape, but now we are killed by you. Haha." Hearing his words, Jiujiu knew that Dwight was really scared. In fact, Jiujiu understood him very well. After all, the consequences for people who escaped from the Salvation Army base were really cruel. The two women also slumped to the ground at this time, with a look of despair on their faces, staring blankly at Jiujiu, Dwight on the ground, and the big metal dog controlling Dwight. Jiujiu curled his lips and said disdainfully, "It doesn't matter, no matter how many people there are in the Salvation Army, I will kill them all. The same is true for Simon, the same is true for the outposts that I destroyed, and the same is true for those who are chasing you. Tell me where the Salvation Army's base is and where the other outposts are. Just tell me everything you know and I will consider saving you." Hearing this, Dwight, who almost fell into madness, was stunned and looked at Jiujiu in disbelief. After a while, he asked eagerly, "It's you. It's you who killed Simon. Haha, I really have to thank you. If you hadn't killed Spencer, we wouldn't have had a chance to escape from the base. Haha, I really didn't expect that Simon, that villain, was killed by you alone. Haha, no problem, as long as you save us, I will tell you everything I know." Hearing this, Jiujiu nodded and said to Zhang Lang, "War Wolf, let him go and prepare to fight." Hearing the sound, Wolf Warrior let go of Dwight's limbs and walked back to Jiujiu like a real, harmless dog. This scene immediately made the three of them stunned, and they even forgot their fear. At this moment, hope appeared in their eyes. They really didn't expect that this metal dog could understand this Asian man's commands, then. With this metal dog, maybe we can really kill the pursuing Salvation Army. After all, a dog made of metal is not afraid of bullets. Jiujiu didn't care about the three of them, because he had already heard the sound of cars and motorcycle engines coming from the distant woods, as well as the voices of many people talking and cursing. Jiujiu walked forward and said to the three people, "Find a place to hide. I won't be able to take care of you once the battle starts. Remember not to die. I still need to know the specific information about the Salvation Army from you." After saying that, Jiujiu crouched, picked up the mechanical crossbow and the war wolf and walked in the direction of the sound. Seeing Jiujiu taking the initiative to face the Salvation Army who was chasing them, Shirley looked at Dwight with a little worry and asked hesitantly. "Dwight, what are we going to do? Do we really have to wait for him to come back?" Dwight nodded when he heard this, with determination in his eyes, and said to Shirley. "Yes, we have to wait for him to come back. I believe he can do it. You don't understand how powerful he is. One person killed Simon and his thugs, and another destroyed the outpost of the Savior Army. Such a person may be the hope for us to completely get rid of the Savior Army." Jiujiu and Zhang Lang entered the forest. The noisy sound became more obvious. From a distance, many figures could be seen in the forest, swaying vaguely. Looking at the situation, Jiujiu knew that he could not act rashly. After all, he was not to the point where bullets could not kill him, but he had a big killer, that is, Zhang Lang. And in a jungle environment like this, it is obvious that the role that Zhang Lang can play is the most deadly. XT moment, Jiujiu gave Zhang Lang the order free hunting. Zhang Lang received the order, nodded to Jiujiu, and rushed into the forest. Jiujiu also began to move, using the trees of the forest to cover him while moving towards the enemy. He had to cooperate with Werewolf, wait for Werewolf to attract the attention of these people, and then hunt them down from behind. Just a few minutes after Werewolf entered, Lin Zili in the distance screamed, "Ah," and the crowd exclaimed in panic, and there were fierce gunshots. Hearing the gunshots from Lin Zili, Dwight and the other two who were looking for a place to hide, all stopped and looked at the back of the forest with surprise and hope. After a while, they found a fallen tree nearby and hid.